All praise to the Most High. So, again, tonight's topic is called Apartheid Secrets Revealed, Chapter 1. Apartheid Secrets Revealed, Chapter 1. Let's open up with the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 8. Deuteronomy, chapter 32, and verse 8. Let's start there.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
So now this is when the Most High God, when he created the nations, he separated the sons of Adam. You understand? He gave the sons of Adam the best land with the best resources and mineral resources and so forth. Okay, because when you read the book of Genesis, the second chapter, it goes into that. Okay, so when the Lord separated when he made the nations, he separated the sons of Adam to dwell by themselves, and so that we can govern everyone else. Okay, read that again, verse 8.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
So now the sons of Adam that the Lord separated, okay, from all his creations that he made. Watch this. Give me the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 54. 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 54.
Second Ezra chapter 6, verse 54.
Come on.
And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen.
You see that thing? The people also whom thou hast chosen, that's the sons of Adam that the Lord separated. So what Ezra is going over here is telling us the same thing that Moses just said. When it separated the sons of Adam, these are the people whom the Lord also has chosen out of the people that the Lord created. You understand? Read that again.
Second Ezra chapter 6, verse 54.
Read.
And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen.
And the people also whom thou hast chosen. Watch this. Give me the book of Isaiah. Okay, Isaiah 44, verse 1. Let's see the people who the Lord chose. Okay. The people that the Lord chose is the same people that the sons of Adam, that the Lord separated when the nations was created. Okay, read that.
Isaiah chapter 44, verse 1.
Go ahead.
Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen.
And Israel, whom I have chosen. So the nations that the people whom the Lord chose is the children of Israel. The sons of Adam that was separated from the creation is the children of Israel. Okay, those are the sons of Adam. Give me that in Luke chapter 3, verse 37. Luke 3, verse 37.
Luke chapter 3, verse 37.
Go ahead.
Which was the son of Methuselah, which was the son of Enoch, which was the son of Jared, which was the son of Maleleel, which was the son of Cainan.
Read.
Which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God.
You see that thing? So the son of God is giving you the lineage where the sons of God descend from. We are the direct lineage of Adam. You understand? So when you read Luke, the 3rd chapter, it goes into Mary's lineage. You understand? When you read the book of Matthew, chapter 1, it gives you Joseph's lineage. Here we're reading about Mary's lineage, and it goes all the way up, even up to the sons of Adam. You understand? Which are the sons of God. So go back to Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
So the sons of Adam, we just find out those sons of Adam, those are the sons of God. Now go back. Now give me now The book of Exodus chapter 4. Exodus 4 verse 22. Exodus chapter 4 verse 22.
The book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 22.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
You see that thing? Israel is my son, even my firstborn. We are the heirs of God. We are God's heir. Okay? So when it says the sons of Adam, it's talking about the children of Israel. Because before the flood, we was called the sons of God. After the flood, we are now called the children of Israel. But it's making reference to the same people. Okay? Now go back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
You know, and another thing is that, you see when it says, when he separated the sons of Adam, according to Exodus 4:22, we know who that is, the children of Israel. But the next verse also tells who the sons of Adam are in verse 8. Read verse 9.
Verse 9. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance.
You see that part right there? Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So the sons of Adam, guess what? Is Jacob's son. The sons of Adam is the children of Israel. Moses is telling us right there in verse 9 who the sons of Adam are, the sons of God. Okay, now watch this. Give me 2 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1. 2 Chronicles chapter 1.
Second Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1.
Come on.
And Solomon, the son of David, was strengthened.
Oh, I'm sorry. First Chronicles 1 and 1.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1. Adam, Sheth, Enosh.
So now what we're reading is the same thing that we just read. You understand in Luke chapter 3. It says Adam, Sheth is Seth. Okay, Enosh is Enos. Okay, read that again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1. Adam, Sheth, Enos.
Now next verse, go ahead.
Kenan, Mahalaleel, Jared.
So now this is giving you the lineage that you can read about in the book of Genesis chapter 5. Okay, Genesis chapter 5 gives you that lineage, gives you that line. So now in Chronicles, he's giving the chronological lineage of our forefathers and all the other nations that came out of Noah. Okay, go ahead.
Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech,
who's the father of Noah. Go ahead.
Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
So now what we are reading here is giving you the generations from Adam unto Abraham. So as we keep reading, guess what? We're going to arrive at our forefather Abraham. So but he's taking you from Adam to Sheth, which is Seth, Enoch, which is Enoch, okay, all the way up. It says Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These are the sons of Noah. Give me that in Genesis 10 verse 1.
Genesis chapter 10 verse 1.
Come on.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood.
He says, unto them were sons born after the flood. Okay, let's go back. First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 4 again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 4. Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Okay, these are the sons. The sons was born. The nations was born after them after the flood. Were born unto them after the flood. Go ahead.
The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tyrus.
Read that again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 5. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog, and Madai, and Javan,
Javan.
and Tubal.
So Javan goes into Greece. So Javan goes into Greece. Because when the Greeks took over, guess what they did? When they conquered Japheth's seed, you understand? They said, no, you're no longer Javan anymore. Now you're Greeks. Because we are conquering you now. Go ahead.
And Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tyrus.
Read.
And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. And
so Ashkenaz, that would be the Germans now today. You understand? German. Ashkenaz, that's German. Go ahead. It doesn't mean that originally they were called Germans. No. After when Esau conquered them, yes, they became Ashkenaz. Yes, they became Germans. But they were not Germans, they were Ashkenaz. Okay? Because Esau conquered them. Go ahead.
And Rephath, and Togoma.
Go ahead.
And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish.
Kittim. Tarshish would be Spain. Tarshish would be Spain. Go ahead.
And Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim.
So Kittim would be Rome. Okay? Kittim would be Rome. So what we are reading here, we're going over the seed line of Japheth. This is Japheth's seed line. Go ahead.
The sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan.
Now read verse 8 again. Read verse 8 again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 8. The sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan.
So now, keep going. Now we're going on to the lineage of Ham now. Remember, this is one of the sons of the youngest son of Noah. You understand? Read.
The sons of Cush, and the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, and Sabta and Raamah, and Sabteka, and the sons of Raamah, Sheba and Dedan.
Go ahead.
And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be mighty upon the earth.
So now Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be mighty upon the earth. Go ahead.
And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphtuhim.
Great, go ahead.
And Pathruzim, and Casluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
Now read verse 11 and 12 together, because we're going to come back here to verse 11 and 12. Read that again.
Verse 11. And Mizraim begat Ludim,
so remember
and
that
Anamim.
Name. Remember that name, Mizraim. Remember that name, Mizraim. Go ahead.
And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphtuhim.
Read.
And Pathruzim, and Casluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
So now, Caphtorim, remember that name as well. Caphtorim, of whom came the Philistines. Okay, and Caphtorim. Watch this. Let's jump down now. Jump down to verse. You know what? Keep going. Read verse 13.
Verse 13. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth.
Come on.
The Jebusite also, and the Amorites, and the Girgashites.
Remember, these are coming out of Canaan now. Okay, these are the sons of Canaan. Read verse 13 again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 13.
Come on.
And Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn, and Heth. The Jebusite also, and the Amorites, and the Girgashites.
Read.
And the Hivites, and the Arkites, and the Sinites.
Read.
And the Arvadites, and the Zemarites, and the Hamathites.
So now what we're reading here, we're reading the sons that came out of Ham. Okay? The sons that came out of the sons that came out of Ham, and the sons that came out of Mizraim, the sons that came out of Canaan. Okay? This is the lineage of Ham now. Okay? Watch this. Now read verse 17 now.
Verse 17.
Mhm.
The sons of Shem, Elam and Ashur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aran, and Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Meshech.
Okay, now hold on. I want you to read. I want you to jump back up to verse 8 again. I just want to deal with him a little bit. Okay, go back to verse 8. Read verse 8 again.
Verse 8. The sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary on page 213. The definition of Ham. It says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Okay, so now we're going to come back to this. Read verse 8 again, First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 8.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 8.
Read.
The sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan.
So now it says Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Okay, now watch this. You see what the scholars have here? The scholars have Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Read verse 17 now. First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 17. Call the chapter and verse. Come on.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 17. The sons of Shem, Elam, and Ashur.
So Elam is India. Okay, Pakistan as well. Okay, India, Pakistan. Go ahead.
Elam and Ashur.
Ashur is the Turks, the Ottoman Turks. That's Ashur. Go ahead.
And Arphaxad.
Arphaxad, that would be the lineage that the children of Israel would come from. Read.
And Lud. And Aram.
Aram, that's the Syrians. That would be the Syrians of today. Go ahead.
And Uz. And Hul. And Gether. And Meshech.
Now this is the lineage of Shem now. This is Shem's seed line. Go ahead.
And Arphaxad begat Shelah, and Shelah begat Eber.
Eber is a Hebrew word to mean from the past. That's what Eber means. That's where the name Hebrew comes from. It comes from the name Eber, meaning from the past. Read that again.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 18. And Arphaxad begat Shelah, and Shelah begat Eber.
Read.
And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan.
So now Peleg, it says Peleg, because Peleg means division. So during the time of Peleg, the earth was divided. You understand? Because the Most High, go back to Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 again, so we don't forget. So we don't forget the thought. Okay? Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. One more again.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8.
Come on.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
You see that thing? Division. The Lord was divided the nations. He set us outside of all these nations. You understand? He set us on the best places on the earth, and then everyone else got the scraps. Whatever was left was given to everyone else. Let's go back now. First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 19.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 19.
Go ahead.
And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan.
Okay, now, so what you want to notice is that, yes, here we're reading about the children that came out of Shem. But out of Shem, there was specific seed. There was a specific seed that the Lord was dealing with. He wasn't dealing with all the children of Shem. Okay, go ahead. Next verse. You know what? Let's jump down. Jump down to verse 24. Let's deal with the chosen seed line of Shem. Okay, because Joktan was not one of them. Yes, he was the seed of Shem, but he was not the seed that the Lord was dealing with. He was dealing with who? He was dealing with Peleg. Okay, read that, verse 24 now.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 24. Shem arfexed Shelah.
Read that again.
Eber. Shem arfexed Shelah.
Read.
Eber. Peleg. Reu.
You see that thing? Eber, Peleg, and Reu. Read on.
Serug. Nahor. Terah.
Come on.
Abram. The son of the same is Abraham.
You see that thing? So from First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1 is starting from Adam all the way up to Abraham and Abraham's seed that the Lord was dealing with. Okay, read that again. Verse 27.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 27. Abram, the same is Abraham.
Read on.
The sons of Abraham, Isaac and Ishmael.
So now we're seeing that the sons of Abraham, Isaac and Ishmael. So let's see the seed that the Lord was dealing with that came out of Abraham. Jump down to verse 34 now. Watch this.
Verse 34. And Abraham begat Isaac. The sons of Isaac, Esau and Israel.
So now Abraham begat Isaac. The sons of Isaac was Esau and who? And Israel. So now he's telling you from Abraham, you've got Ishmael, you've got Isaac. From those two, the Lord chose Isaac. You understand? And Isaac had two sons, Esau and Israel. Who did the Lord choose? Hold it. Give me the book of second. Let's go to Second Ezra now. Second Ezra. Okay, Second Ezra chapter 3 and verse. Second Ezra chapter 3 and verse. Let's start at verse 13. You know what? Let's start at verse 11. Second Ezra chapter 3 verse 11. Let's start there.
Second Ezra chapter 3 verse 11.
Go ahead.
Nevertheless, one of them thou leftest, namely Noah with his household, of whom came all righteous men.
Read. He's going to tell you who those righteous men are that came out of Noah. Read.
And it happened that when they that dwelt upon the earth began to multiply, and had gotten them many children, and were a great people, they began again to be more ungodly than the first.
You see that thing? This is now after the flood. Remember, after the flood, you have Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, they also started to become wicked. That goes into the Tower of Babel in Genesis the 11th chapter. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Now when they lived so wickedly before thee, thou didst choose thee a man from among them, whose name was Abraham.
You see that thing? So from Noah, now he's moving. He's not listing all the people that came between Noah and Abraham. We just read about them in First Chronicles. Okay, come on.
Him thou lovest, and unto him only thou showest thy will.
Because you can read about that in Genesis chapter 17, when the Lord visited Abraham and the promises that he made and the covenant he made with him and his seed after him. Read.
And madest an everlasting covenant with him, promising him that thou wouldest never forsake his seed.
He says, he promised Abraham that I'm not going to forsake your seed. What is the seed of Abraham? We just read about Isaac. Then we read about Isaac. He had two sons, Jacob and Esau. You understand? Watch this. Go ahead.
And unto him thou gavest Isaac, and unto Isaac also thou gavest Jacob and Esau.
You see that thing? That's the same thing we read in First Chronicles. Thou gavest Jacob and Esau. Go ahead.
As for Jacob, thou didst choose him to thee, and put by Esau.
Meaning what? He rejected Esau. He chose Jacob and he rejected Esau. Go ahead.
And put by Esau. And so Jacob became a great multitude.
You see that thing? It says he chose Jacob and put by Esau. And so Jacob became a great multitude. Give me that in Deuteronomy 26 verse 5. Okay? Deuteronomy chapter 26 verse 5. Jacob became a great multitude. Where did he become a great multitude? In Egypt. Okay? Read that. Deuteronomy 26 verse 5.
Deuteronomy chapter 26 verse 5. And thou shalt speak and say before the Lord thy God, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt, and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation, great, mighty, and populous.
So when we was in Egypt, we became great, mighty, and populous. He says, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt. Who's that? Give me that in Hosea 12. This is the quick precept. Okay, Hosea chapter 12, verse 12. A Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt. You can read about that in Exodus 1, verse 1 down. Hosea 12, verse 12. Read that.
Hosea chapter 12 verse 12. And Jacob fled into the country of Syria.
Into what?
And Israel into the country of Syria.
He fled down into the country of Syria. Go ahead.
And Israel served for a wife. And for a wife he kept sheep.
You see that thing? You can read about that in Genesis, the 29th chapter. Okay? Let's go back now. Go back to 2nd Ezra. Okay? 2nd Ezra chapter 3, verse 16 again.
2nd Ezra chapter 3 verse 16. And unto him thou gavest Isaac, and unto Isaac thou gavest Jacob and Esau. As for Jacob, thou didst choose him to be, and put by Esau. And so Jacob became a great multitude.
We became a great multitude. That's when we came into Egypt. We became a great, mighty, and populous multitude in Egypt. Okay? Now go back to 1 Chronicles now. 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 34 again.
1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 34. And Abraham begat Isaac. The sons of Isaac, Esau and Israel.
So now what we just read in 2nd Ezra, now we know who the Lord chose. He chose Jacob. That's why it says he promised Abraham that he will never forsake his seed. That's the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? Now give me 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1. This is the seed that the Lord promised to Abraham that he will never forsake. Okay? 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1. Read what you got.
1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1. These are the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun.
Come on.
Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher.
So now what we're reading here is what? These are the sons that the Lord chose. Out of what? From all the way from Adam, like we read in 1 Chronicles 1 and 1 down. You understand? These are all the people that the Lord will be dealing with in the last days. And the same people became a great multitude when we was in Egypt. Okay? Then we left Egypt. Okay? We entered into we were in the wilderness, then we entered into the promised land, and then generations later, we went into slavery. You understand? So it is today. Same thing that happened back then, it happened to us today. Now watch this. Give me the book. Give me the book of, let me see what I want first. Would you do me a favor? Read 1 Chronicles 2 verse 1 again. Come on. 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1 and 2 again. Okay, come on. Brother Haggai. 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1 again.
1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 1. These are the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun.
Read.
Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher.
Now watch this. Give me the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Okay, give me Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. Watch this.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 15.
Come on.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So Moses is talking about a future prophecy. A prophecy, the prophecy or the prophecy regarding the judgment that will befall us in the last days when we break the laws of the Most High God. Okay, watch this. Read verse 45 now.
Verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee.
So now Moses is telling us, he said, listen, moreover, these curses, they're going to come upon thee, okay? And they shall pursue thee. They're going to follow you wherever you go, as long as you are still under the judgment of the Most High God. Wherever you go, the curses will follow you wherever you go. Next verse, go ahead.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
So now it says, these curses will be upon us for a sign and for a wonder, and upon our seed forever. Meaning these curses will be generational. You understand? From one generation to the next, as long as we're still under the judgment of the Most High God, and as long as the Lord is still dealing with us in terms of our judgment, guess what? They are going to follow us wherever we go. Now watch this. Give me 2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 42. 2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 42.
2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 42.
Come on.
And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring.
I will what?
I will liken my judgment unto a ring.
So now the angel is telling Ezra, listen, I'm gonna liken my judgment, meaning the judgment that I'm gonna put upon the 12 tribes of Israel, like unto a ring. Go ahead.
Like as there is no slackness of the last.
He says, if there's no slackness of the last, meaning the last judgment, because remember, he's using a ring as a similitude for the judgment that will be upon us, for a sign and for a wonder, and upon our seed forever. Read on.
Even so, there is no swiftness of the first.
You see what he's saying? It says the judgment will be like a ring. So you're not going to see the beginning of it, you're not going to see the end of it, but it will what? It will keep going, it will move in a circular motion from one generation after the next. You understand? Until who? Until the Christ is the one that is going to stop the judgment. You understand? That will be moving like a ring. You know, the secular like a ring. That's why it says, these curses shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Meaning one generation after the next, they will liken our judgment like unto a ring. Where there's no sweetness of the last, okay? When it says there's no slackness of the last or sweetness of the first, meaning what? Judgment. That's what he's saying right there. Read that again, verse 42.
2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 42. And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring.
Wait.
Like as there is no slackness of the last, even so, there is no swiftness of the first.
Now watch this. Give me the book of Galatians. Okay, Galatians chapter 3. Because the Apostle Paul, he touched on the same thing. The book of Galatians chapter 3 and verse 13.
Galatians chapter 3, verse 13. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law.
Christ has what?
Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law.
You see what he's saying? It says Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. So Christ is the only one that was used to do what? To give us a chance to get the kingdom. And when his second coming, he's going to completely stop the curses. But as long as Christ is not back yet, the curses are going to be moving in a circular motion from one generation to the next, like as in a what? Like as in the shape of a ring. You see that thing? Read that again.
Galatians chapter 3, verse 13.
Read.
Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law.
Come on.
Being made a curse from us. Being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on the tree.
So now watch this. Remember, this at this point when it says Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, what is the curse he's making reference to? The curses of Deuteronomy 28. What is he saying? This is telling us that these curses have an end. They're not going to go forever. Okay, give me that in Revelation 22. Revelation chapter 22 and verse 3. Read that.
Revelation chapter 22, verse 3.
Go ahead.
And there shall be no more curse.
You see that thing? There shall be no more curse. Meaning these curses are gonna what? They're gonna come to an end. And the Messiah, when he returns, that's when he's gonna stop those curses completely. Right now, he came so that he can what? Give us the chance to get the kingdom, to get ourselves right. The grace that is given us so that we can fix our issues, our mental hang-ups. Read that again.
Revelation chapter 22, verse 3. And there shall be no more curse.
There shall be no more curse when the Lord returns. Go ahead.
But the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him.
You see that thing? And his servants shall serve him. Meaning when we're going to rule with Christ in the kingdom. You understand? His father will give him the kingdom, and Christ will share his kingdom that his father gave unto him. He's going to share that kingdom with us. You understand? Give me that in the book of Lamentations chapter 4. Lamentations chapter 4 verse 21, I believe. Okay, it's not part of my notes, so I need to write it down. Lamentations chapter 4, let me see. Yes, Lamentations 4 verse 21. Read that.
Lamentations chapter 4, verse 21.
Go ahead.
Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom.
It says, rejoice and be glad. Hold on. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom. So it's talking about the Edomites. Go ahead. Watch this.
That dwellest in the land of Uz.
Because Uz was what? Uz is going into the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans, Uz today is making reference to what? It's symbolic of the United States of America. That's why it says that dwelleth in the land of Uz. Watch this. Give me the book of Isaiah, okay? Isaiah chapter 13. I believe that's what I want. Isaiah chapter 13, might be verse 19. Yes, read that. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19.
Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah.
So now the Chaldees, it goes into what? The land of Uz. That's what is this making reference to? It's making reference to Babylon the Great. Okay, go back to where was that? Lamentations 4 verse 21 again.
Lamentations chapter 4 verse 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken, and shalt make thyself naked.
You see what it says? When it says the cup also shall pass through unto thee, what is that cup making reference? The cup of judgment. Meaning they also gonna get judged for what they've done to us. Go ahead.
Verse 22. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion.
You see what it's saying? The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. So when Esau goes down, guess what? That's when our punishment is going to be complete. That's why give me that in Wisdom of Solomon 18 verse 7. Jeremiah is saying the same thing that King Solomon said here.
Wisdom of Solomon chapter 18 verse 7. So of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies.
You see that thing? When our enemies get destroyed, that's when our punishment will end. No more curse. Go back to Lamentations 4, verse 22 again.
Lamentations chapter 4 verse 22. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion.
Come on.
He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins.
So that's what the Lord is saying, meaning no more curse. Okay, that's when the Lord returns. Now watch this. There's something I mentioned about Uz, okay, which is there of the Chaldees. Give me the book of Jude, chapter 5, verse 7. Okay, start at verse 1. We're going to jump. This is Holophonies now. Nebuchadnezzar, captain, okay?
Judith chapter 5 verse 1.
Read.
Then was it declared to Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Ashur, that the children of Israel had prepared for war,
That the what?
and had that the children of Israel had prepared for war.
That the children of Israel had prepared for war. Guess what? That's the same thing we're doing right now. We are preparing for war. Go ahead.
And had shut up the passages of the hill country, and had fortified all the tops of the high hills,
Read.
and had laid impedance in the champaign countries.
Now jump down to verse 6 now. Watch this.
Verse 6. This people are descended of the Chaldeans.
You see what he's saying? These people are the descendants of the Chaldeans. Watch this. Go ahead.
And they sojourned heretofore in Mesopotamia.
You see that thing?
Because they would
that
not
land,
follow.
Hold on. That land, when it says, and they sojourned heretofore in Mesopotamia. What is he referencing? He's referencing our forefather Abraham. Because when you look at our forefather Abraham's journey, he was what? He was in Mesopotamia. He was going up. You understand? Towards the north, and then towards the west, and then all the way into Egypt. Go ahead.
Because they would not follow the gods of their fathers, which were in the land of Chaldea.
Which were in the land of Chaldea. Give me Genesis 11 verse 31. Genesis chapter 11 verse 31.
Genesis chapter 11 verse 31. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees.
From what?
From Ur of the Chaldees.
From Ur of the Chaldees. From Ur of the Chaldees. Go ahead.
To go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there.
So now when you Google Abraham's journey, you'll see all these names that have been mentioned here. Okay? Now, watch this. Let's go back now. Now, the reason why I'm going over this is I'm trying to show you brothers and sisters that the curses, guess what? The curses will follow us wherever we go. From the time of Egypt, you understand? The Assyrians, you understand? From the time of the Persians, Babylon, then Persia, then Greece, Rome, then America. Okay? Same thing. Spain, France, Germany, Russia, Great Britain, then America. Those cases will follow us up to this day. You understand? Go back to 2nd Ezra. Okay? Go back to 2nd Ezra chapter 5 verse 42 again.
Second Ezra chapter 5 verse 42. And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring. Like as there is no slackness of the last, even so, there is no swiftness of the first.
There is no swiftness of the first, meaning the curses will be reoccurring. They'll keep happening to us until Christ is going to return and stop the curses from reoccurring. That's what we are waiting on, patiently. We are patiently waiting for the Messiah to come and deliver us from the hands of our enemies. Now watch this. Give me the book of Matthew 24 verse 8. Matthew chapter 24 verse 8.
Matthew chapter 24 verse 8.
Go ahead.
All these are the beginning of sorrows.
The beginning of sorrows is going into Jacob's troubles. Go ahead.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
He says, ye shall be hated for one of the nations. What did he say?
And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
So Christ is teaching us, listen, in the last days, you shall what? Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Because all nations are against us, including our people that will not repent. they also fall under this category of the nations that were despised. Now watch this. Give me the book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 9. First Maccabees 2, verse 9.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity.
Stop right there. What did he say?
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Because who's the most High's glorious vessel? The 12 tribes of Israel. Hold this. Give me the book of Hosea, chapter 8, verse 8. Okay? Hosea chapter 8, verse 8. It says, the glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Hosea 8, verse 8.
Hosea chapter 8, verse 8. Israel is swallowed up now, is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure.
Because how can we have pleasure in the land that is not ours when we are oppressed, repressed, depressed? You understand? How can we have pleasure? We cannot have pleasure in the land that is not ours. Read that again, verse 8.
Hosea chapter 8, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure.
You see that thing? Now we are among the Gentiles and we are a vessel wherein there is no pleasure. We have no pleasure among these Gentiles. Watch this. Give me the book of Tobit. Okay, keep it Tobit chapter 3. Maybe Tobit chapter 13. Let me look at it. Tobit 13 verse 3. Read that.
Tobit chapter 13, verse 3.
Come on.
Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them.
You see what he's saying? He says confessing before the Gentiles, meaning before these other nations whom the Lord has scattered us among. You understand? Ye children of Israel, for he has scattered us among them. So the Lord has scattered us among these Gentiles, and we are a vessel wherein we have no pleasure. Why? Because we have learned the customs of these nations, and guess what? Now we have become the nations now, even in the way we think. Okay? Go back to where was that now? First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 9.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 9.
Go ahead.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity.
You see that thing? That's the thing, the same thing that we read in Tobit, what we read in the book of Hosea. Okay? Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Read.
Her infants are slain in the streets.
Come on.
Her young men.
Wait. It says there what?
Her infants are slain in the streets.
Her infants are slain in the streets. Remember, it says we will be among these Gentiles and we're not going to have pleasure. That's why it says her infants are slain in the streets. Watch this. Give me the book of Jeremiah. Okay? No, Isaiah. I think that's what I want. Isaiah 8. Is it Isaiah or Jeremiah? Jeremiah 8. Give me Jeremiah 8. I'm going to start at verse 1. Yes, Jeremiah 8, verse 1. Read that.
Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 1.
Read.
At that time, saith the Lord, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah.
They shall what?
And they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah.
He says they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah. Go ahead.
And the bones of the priests.
No.
And the bones.
And the bones of the princes. And the bones of the priests. Pay attention. Come on. Read again verse 1.
Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, saith the Lord, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah.
Read.
And the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, out of their graves.
To do what? To shame us. Remember what Tobit was doing. If you read the book of Tobit, what was Tobit doing? Tobit was burying the dead. Watch this. Give me the book of Tobit. I'll give you an example. When we are under the Assyrians, remember it says the curses will be, you will liken the curses like unto a ring, the judgment like unto a ring. Watch this. Give me the book of Tobit now. Tobit chapter 2. Let's start at verse 1. Watch this.
Tobit chapter 2 verse 1.
Mhm.
Now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me, with my son Tobias, in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks.
Come on.
It was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat.
So now this is during the time of the Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks. So Tobit says a good dinner was prepared and he was getting ready to eat because there was a feast. Go ahead.
And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, Go and bring what poor man soever thou shalt find out of our brethren, who is mindful of the Lord. And lo, I tarry for thee.
So now, you remember now, Tobit there's a feast. The Pentecost feast is going on. Now watch what happens, because remember what we read. It says, we are going to be among these nations, and we're not going to have what? We're not going to have pleasure when the Lord is going to scatter us among his Gentiles. Next verse. Go ahead.
Verse 3.
Mhm.
But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled
Is what?
and is cast. One of our nation is strangled.
He says, one of our brothers, one of our nation is strangled, meaning they were hanging our forefathers and foremothers. Go ahead.
And is cast out in the marketplace.
You see that thing? So they were hanging us and they were throwing the bodies in the marketplace. Read.
Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun.
You see what Tobit was doing? Now we were on the Feast of Pentecost. Now he's supposed to be feasting. Now he's hearing that our forefathers are being hanged and their bodies are being thrown in the marketplace. Go ahead.
Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness.
Read and what?
And ate my meat in heaviness.
And ate my meat in heaviness. And ate my meat in heaviness. What was the heaviness? Remember what the prophecy said. That's what we read in the book of Hosea 8 verse 8. First Maccabees 2 verse 9. Okay? Because among these nations, we're not going to have ease. We're not going to have it easy among these nations. Okay? Read that verse again, verse 5.
Tobit chapter 2 verse 5. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness.
Okay, watch this. Now, remember, he went and took the body, okay? He took the body and he says he washed it. He says, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. So he didn't wash it yet. Now watch this. Hold it, we coming back. Go to chapter 1 and verse 13.
Tobit chapter 1 verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
And the Most High gave me grace and favor before Enemanessar.
Enemasar is Shalmaneser. Okay, so this is written in Greek. So Enemasar. But when you read it in the Bible, it says Shalmaneser. Okay, read that again.
Tobit chapter 1 verse 13. And the Most High gave me grace and favor before Enemasar, so that I was his purveyor.
Purveyor meaning what? He was dealing with the food. He was the one that was serving. Read.
Verse 14. And I went into Media and lived in trust with Gabael.
Gabael, go ahead.
And lived in trust with Gabael, the brother of Gabrius.
Read.
At Regis, a city of Media.
At Regis, a city of Media. Go ahead.
At Regis, a city of Media.
Mm-hmm.
10 talents of silver.
Read.
Now when Enemasar was dead, Sennacherib, his son, reigned in his stead.
So Sennacherib, remember we went over the Assyrian Empire. You should know this history now. Okay, when Enemasar died, Sennacherib, his son, it says, reigned in his stead. Watch this.
Whose estate was troubled,
Come on.
that I could not go into Media.
So now when Sennacherib took the throne, he could no longer freely go into Media. Watch this, read on.
And in the time of Enemessar, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry.
Meaning what? Tobit, he cared for the nation. But he says he gave his bread to the hungry. The hungry of our people that were keeping the commandments of the Most High. You read about it in Tobit chapter 2 and verse 2. Go ahead.
And my clothes to the naked. And if I saw any of my nation dead or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried him.
That's the key right there. Read that part again. Read verse 17 again.
Tobit chapter 1 verse 17. And my clothes to the naked. And if I saw any of my nation dead or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried him.
So what was going on is that during the time of Sennacherib, what Sennacherib was doing is that he was killing our forefathers and just throwing their bodies over the wall. So you can imagine a number of dead bodies that were scattered on the ground that Tobit is describing. Who was burying those bodies? Tobit was doing that. You understand? That's the same thing we just read in the book of Jeremiah chapter 8. Same thing we read in 1 Maccabees 2 verse 9. It says their infants are slain in the streets. Okay? Because they were just killing us. Like it was nothing. Okay, come on.
And if the king Sennacherib had slain any when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privily. For in his wrath he killed many.
He did what?
For in his wrath he killed many.
So he says, for in his wrath he killed many. Remember, if you remember the history now, he returned from Judea. Why did he return from Judea? Because Hezekiah was the king at that time, and we fortified the city. So when Hezekiah was the king, we fortified the city, and guess what? 184,000 of their soldiers, of his soldiers, were put to death by the angel. The next day when they woke up, 184,000 men were killed by an angel overnight. They didn't hear nothing. There was no screams, nothing. Everybody just dropped dead. So now he's coming back from Judea. He's mad as hell. So if he arrived in Assyria, what is he doing? He's killing the Israelites over there. These are the same Israel that Tobit was burying. Go ahead.
For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king.
So now remember, it says he killed many, and he killed many to humiliate us, because he was killing our forefathers and our foremothers and throwing their dead bodies over the wall to be eaten by birds. You understand? As a form to shame us. So now Tobit is saying what he was doing is he was burying them. So when they were looking for those bodies, they were not found, because that's what Tobit was doing. But what I want to show you with this is that what we are reading in 1 Maccabees 2 verse 9 is the same thing that we are reading in what? In the book of Jeremiah chapter 8. Remember, Jeremiah is during what time period? Babylon. Okay? Now, Tobit is during the time of the Assyrians. What we're reading in 1 Maccabees is during the time of the Greeks. So, like we read in 2nd Ezra, chapter 5 verse 42, Deuteronomy 28 verse 45 and 46, the cases will keep reoccurring. That is what I'm trying to show you. Okay, let's go back. Jeremiah 8 verse 1 again.
Jeremiah chapter 8 verse 1. At that time, saith the Lord, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of their graves.
Because that's what Sennacherib wanted. Sennacherib didn't want our bodies to be buried. You understand? So during the time of Babylon, they also did the same. They wanted our bodies to be all out there to rot and to be eaten by birds, and the bones be left as a reminder of what they did to us. Go ahead.
And they shall spread them before the sun.
They shall what?
And they shall spread them before the sun.
They shall spread the dead bodies of our forefathers and foremothers before the sun. Go ahead.
And the moon and all the host of heaven, whom they have loved, and whom they have served, and after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, and whom they have worshipped. And they shall not be gathered, nor be buried, They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth.
You see what they did? This is exactly what was doing. This is exactly what was going on during this time. Because of what? Because of the Lord bringing judgment upon us. And because he knew that these same nations that he scattered us among, they hated and despised us. So now, as they were doing this, what they were doing to us, they were doing it because they hate the fact that the Lord chose us above them all. You understand? Give me that in Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15. And the same thing going on, the same thing that went back then is going on today. The nations know that we went into slavery because of our sin. And guess what? They are making it worse, so we remain in sin. Watch this. Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15.
Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15.
Come on.
And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease.
You see what the Lord is saying? He says he's very sore, he's so displeased, okay, with the heathen that are at ease, meaning the other nations, they are happy of the conditions that we're in. Go ahead.
For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction.
He says these nations, they help forward the affliction. Yes, the Lord allowed them to do certain things to us, you understand? But they took it a step further. That's why it says they were at ease. You see that thing? Watch this. Give me the book of Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 7. Let me see. Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 7. Yeah, read it.
Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
All that found them have devoured them.
You see that thing? The nations that have found us, remember what Christ says in Matthew 24, verse 9. He says, ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Because the laws of God was given to us. That's where hence the hatred. Read that again, verse 7.
Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 7.
Go ahead.
And all that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries said, we offend not.
You see that thing? Remember what we read in Zechariah. It says, they help forward the affliction, meaning they make our condition worse. So that's the same thing that Jeremiah is telling us. That when they do these things to us, it says we offend not. Meaning we're not doing anything wrong. You see what I'm saying? Read.
We offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord.
You see that part right there? That's the justification they have behind the actions they conduct. It says because they have sinned against the Lord. That's why they help forward the affliction. They make our condition worse. That's why they set up churches at every corner. They set up bottle stores. They open up bottle stores at every corner. There's abortion clinics at every corner. You understand? There's condoms everywhere. There's morning after pills. There's injections and so forth. You understand? There's rights for children to report their parents to the police and so forth. They help forward the affliction. Okay, read.
The habitation of justice, even the Lord, the hope of their fathers.
You see that thing? So now go back to First Maccabees. First Maccabees 2 verse 9 again. Now that we understand what was being said over there. Go back there.
First Maccabees chapter 2 verse 9. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Her infants are slain in the streets.
Yeah, infants are slain in the streets. Go ahead.
Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
And that's exactly what you are seeing today. You understand? The young men with the sword of the enemy. Because the sword of the enemy is not just going into a gun. No, the sword of the enemy is what? The sword of the enemy is what? Is politics. That's the sword of the enemy. Okay? Christianity is the sword of the enemy. You understand? Poor education, that's the sword of the enemy. Gentrification, where we are redlined into staying in rural areas, the location where we are packed like rats, living like rats, where everybody's always living on edge. Yes, that's the sword of the enemy. You understand? Give me that in Isaiah 5 verse 8, just to prove what I'm saying. Okay, Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8.
Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
Woe to them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth.
You see that thing? So what are they doing? What are they doing? Gentrification. they red line us into communities. Because if you look at the old maps, you understand? I think it was during the time of Pergut and all of that. There's a picture where all these Boers, they are sitting down to draw lines. Okay, this is Soweto, this is Jabulani, this is Tembisa, and so forth, where we are going to stay. And when you look at those places, there's only one. There's one entrance into the location and one way out. There's no multiple exits. There's one way in and one way out. So if there's a war, guess what? There's going to be a lot of casualties. But when you look at the way Pretoria is designed as an example, there's a lot of entrances into the city, into Pretoria, and there's a lot of exits. So in case there's a war, guess what? There's going to be less casualties. It's by design. You understand? So, and the way they pack us into the communities, we live in matchboxes like you're in a jail, because it is a jail. You understand? Your thinking becomes small. Even the way you make decisions is small because of where you're confined into a very small, confined area. There's noise all around you all the time. You don't got time to think. Okay? Watch this. Give me Proverbs 23 verse 10. Because when it says they join house to house and what lay field to field, that there be no place, that's why in the location, there's no space. Okay? That they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. That's why they live on the best places on the earth. Before you get me there, give me that in Genesis 27, just to prove that. Okay? Genesis chapter 27. They will live on the best places of the earth. Watch this. Genesis chapter 27 and verse 38. Genesis 27 verse 38.
Genesis 27 verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father.
Read.
And Esau lifted up his voice and wept.
Come on.
And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth.
You see that part right there?
And
thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. Thy dwelling. Remember it says, they join, it says, woe unto them that join house to house and lay field to field, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. What is that going into? It's going into the blessing that was given to Esau. It says, thy what shall be? Read that part again. Thy dwelling.
Thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth.
Thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. Them and their descendants will live on the best places on earth. That's what it's saying right there. Go ahead.
And the dew of heaven from above.
As the dew of heaven from above, meaning they're going to be everywhere. And wherever they're going to be, they are going to be living on the best places on earth. That's what it's saying right there. So now, go back to Isaiah 5 verse 8.
Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8.
Read.
Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field,
Go ahead.
that there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth.
So now watch this. Give me that in Proverbs 23 verse 10. Proverbs chapter 23 and verse. You know what? Give me Proverbs 22 verse 28 first.
Proverbs chapter 22 verse 28. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set.
You see what the Lord, this is the law right here. It says, don't remove the ancient landmarks which thy fathers have set. Because guess what they did? What did the white men do? You understand? What is the Chinese men doing in the Congo, in Zambia, in Gambia? What are they doing? They are messing up with the ancient landmarks. You understand? Because they are taking land. They are stealing land. So this is the law in the Bible. Read that part again, verse 28.
Proverbs 22 verse 28.
Read.
Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set.
Now give me chapter 23 verse 10.
Proverbs 23 verse 10.
Come on.
Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the field of the fatherless.
You see, that's the law. The law, that's the law right there. Read it again, verse 10.
Proverbs 23 verse 10. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless.
He says, don't remove the old landmark, okay? Meaning what? Don't mess up with the land. Don't be messing up with the land and don't mess up with the allotment of land. You see that thing? But guess what? Next verse. Go ahead.
Verse 11. For their Redeemer is mighty. He shall plead their cause with thee.
You see what the Lord is saying? He says, but they're going to get judged for messing up with the allotment of land that was given to us. Give me that in Deuteronomy 27, verse 16.
Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 16.
No. Let me see. I think it's verse 19. Let me see.
Says it verse 17.
This is verse 17. Read it. Yeah, that's the one right there. Thank you. Verse 17.
Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 17.
Go ahead.
Cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark, and all the people shall say amen.
You see that thing? It says, cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark, and all the people shall say amen. This is a law in the Bible. Cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark. So now go back to where was it now? First Maccabees 2.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 9.
Go ahead.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
You see that thing? So the sword is not just going into what? It's not. I just use an example of a sword, land. You understand? Gentrification, redlining. To redline us into communities that where we live like rest and all that. Yes. So that's why I just give an example of the sword of the enemy. Okay, when it comes to land. Okay, read on. Next verse. Come on.
What nation hath not a part in her kingdom?
No.
And gotten her.
Read that again, verse 10. Read it right. Come on.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 10. What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom? And gotten of her spoils?
It says, what nation had not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? All nations had a part in our kingdom. All nations on earth, they partook in that thing. Watch this now. Go back to Matthew. Matthew chapter 28, verse 9. I don't want you to lose the thought. Matthew 28, verse 9.
Matthew chapter 28, verse 9.
Read. No, Matthew 24. Matthew 24, verse 9.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 9. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
He says, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Because these nations that Christ is talking about, these nations are going to partake in our captivity, and they're going to take our spoils. All the nations on earth. Watch this. Give me the book of Psalms now. Psalms 83, verse 2. Psalms chapter 83, verse 2.
Psalms chapter 83, verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
He says, thine enemies make a tumult, meaning an angry gathering. You understand? On how to destroy the children of Israel. Meaning what? This is an example of how our enemies are dealing wisely with us. Read that again, verse 2.
Psalm chapter 82, verse 2.
Read.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
He says, they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They've lifted up the head as what? They've lifted up the head as God on this, as God. You understand? They've lifted up the head as the Jews. They've lifted up the head as Christ. That's how they've lifted up the head. Give me that in Deuteronomy 28, verse 43, just as an example. He says, the enemies have lifted up their head. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, verse 43.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43.
Come on.
The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high.
The strangers
And-
will get up above us very high in the land of our captivity among these Gentiles. Go ahead.
And thou shalt come down very low.
We shall come down very low. Go ahead. Next verse. Watch this.
He shall lend to thee,
Mhm.
and thou shalt not lend to him.
Come on.
He shall be the head.
He shall be the what?
He shall be the head.
Remember what we read in Psalm 82. You understand? In Psalm 83, it says, thine enemies, they've lifted up their head. He says, he shall be the head, and we shall be what?
And thou shalt be the tail.
We shall be the tail. We're always going to be beggars in this captivity. That's what he's saying right there. Let's go back to Psalm 83, verse 2 again.
Psalm chapter 83, verse 2.
Read.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult,
Mhm.
and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
They that hate the Most High God have lifted up their head. You understand? They shall be the head, and we shall be the tail. Go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
They have taken crafty counsel against the children of Israel. You understand the meaning what? They are dealing wisely with us. Go ahead.
And consulted against thy hidden ones.
Because we are the hidden ones in the earth. Nobody knows we're the Jews. Nobody knows we're the Jews because we're not running around saying we are Jews in the media. You understand? Yes, we are starting to wake up now, but the key is when you ask any person on the street, who are the Jews? They're going to say white people. Okay, go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people,
Go ahead.
and consulted against thy hidden ones.
The crafty counsel that they took was what? The Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration is the crafty counsel they took. You understand? The Balfour Declaration of 1917, which came to pass in 1948. That's the crafty counsel they've taken against us, the children of Israel. Now watch this. Give me the book of Daniel, chapter 11. Okay, Daniel 11, verse 14. They've taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Watch this. Daniel chapter 11, verse 14. This is the crafty counsel. Watch this.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 14. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south.
Come on.
Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fail.
So it says, and also the robbers of thy people, the robbers who robbed us of our identity and our culture and our land. Who did that? Amalek and Ishmael. You understand? They robbed us of what? They robbed us of our land, our culture, our identity, and our nationality. You understand? To establish the vision that they are the Jews. When did that happen? 1948. They established that vision, but the Lord says they are going to fail, meaning they are not going to succeed. Okay, let's go back. Psalms 83. Psalms 83, verse 4 now.
Psalm chapter 83, verse 4.
Mhm.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
You see that thing? The next thing that they did was that they cut us off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Watch this. Give me the book of Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26. Deuteronomy 32 verse 26. Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 26. I said, I would scatter them into corners.
Our what?
I would scatter them into corners.
So the Lord promised that He's going to scatter us into corners, the four corners of the earth. Go ahead.
I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men.
You see that thing? That's the prophecy right there. He says, I will make the remembrance of them to cease, to stop from among men. Nobody going to remember. We're going to be those hidden people on the earth. He says, what happened to the 12 tribes of Israel? You hear people in the Christian church, he says, no, they are dead. They are no longer on earth. That's prophecy. That's the same thing that David is saying in the spirit. We was in the wilderness. Moses was prophesying about this thing, what would happen to us. And there's another precept to Deuteronomy 28, verse 37, Isaiah 55, verse 15, so on and so forth. Okay? Go back, Psalm 33, verse 5.
Psalm chapter 83, verse 5.
Come on.
For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
Meaning what? The reason why they have a confederacy is because what? They've consulted together with one consent. Meaning what? They all move as one. They move in one spirit, one mind, one judgment. They have the same understanding about what? About what? About making sure that our names is no longer in remembrance. That nobody remembers that we are the children of Israel. So verse 4 and 5, it goes into our identity being taken, our nationality, our names being changed, being called by another name. No longer we be called Judah, but we be called Bantus and Negroes, so on and so forth. That is what this is going into. Okay, come on. Verse 6.
The tabernacles of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom. So he's telling you in verse 2, the enemies of God. Jump up to verse 2.
Psalm chapter 82, verse 2.
Come on.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
So the enemies of God, they make a tumult. Now jump down, he's going to give you the list of his enemies that have come together to destroy the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, come on. Verse 8, verse 6 now, again.
Psalm chapter 83, verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
The tabernacles of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom, that's the white man. Go ahead.
And the Ishmaelites.
That's the Arabs of today. Read.
Of Moab.
That's the Chinese.
And the Hagarenes.
This goes into the Hamites. Go ahead.
Gebal and Ammon.
Gebal, Hamites. Ammon, that's the Japanese of today. Read.
And Amalek.
Jewish people in our land today calling themselves Jewish. Amalek. That's Amalek right there. Go ahead.
The Philistines.
The what?
With the inhabitants. The Philistines.
The Philistines. Read.
The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
Now read. I want you to read verse 7 again. One more time.
Psalm chapter 82, verse 7.
Read.
Gebal and Ammon. And Amalek. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
So now we're gonna deal with the Philistines. It says Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Watch this. Give me the book of Joel, chapter 3. We're gonna start at verse 4. Joel 3, verse 4. Remember, we're dealing with the enemies. It says, "Ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." Okay, watch this. Because no nation has not had a part in our captivity and gotten off our spoil. They stole, they robbed us of everything that we had, our substance. Joel chapter 3, verse 4 now. Watch this. Come on.
The book of Joel. Apologies. The book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 4.
Go ahead.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon?
Read.
And all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head.
So now the Lord is going into the nations that will come together to destroy the children of Israel, to destroy our forefathers and foremothers, our nation. So read that again, verse 4.
Joel chapter 3, verse 4. And what have ye to do with me, O Tyre?
Verse 4 again, verse 4, come on. You're skipping words here.
Joel chapter 3, verse 4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon?
Tyre and Sidon. Tyre and Sidon. Hold this. Let's go back to First Chronicles. Okay? First Chronicles chapter 1. First Chronicles chapter 1. First Chronicles chapter 1 and verse 13. Read that again.
First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 13.
Read.
And Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn,
Mhm.
and Heth.
So Canaan begets Zidon, his firstborn, and Heth. So Zidon comes from the Canaanites, okay, which is the seed line of Ham. Go back. Joel 3, verse 4 again.
Joel chapter 3, verse 4.
Mhm.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon,
So these are Hamites. Read.
and all the coasts of Palestine?
Stop right there. Palestine and all the coast of Palestine. Remember, Palestine is actually Philistine. The Palestinians, they took over the land of the Philistines. They call themselves Palestinians, meaning what? What do they call it? The United Arab, what? The United, this is the United Arab of Egypt, the United Arab of Egypt, something like that. Some of you, one of you brothers, you can Google that. The United Arab in the land of Egypt, something like to that effect. Okay, so that they call themselves Palestinians, but they took the land of the Philistines, Tyre and Zidon. They took that land in the state in around 1845. You understand? In the 14th century, the mid 14th century, around 1845, as the Ottoman Turks, they took over that land. Okay, watch this. Read that again, verse 4.
Joel chapter 3, verse 4.
Mhm.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine?
Mhm.
Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head.
So now watch this. So the Lord is saying, you see, these two nations, Tyre and Zidon, which is one family, and the Palestinians, which is the Arabs that took over the land of the Philistines, they changed that name to Palestine, Palestinians. You understand? Now, watch this. Give me, let me go to this book, okay? The Scramble for Africa by Thomas Pakenham. I'm gonna go to page. This is now in the introduction. Okay, the introduction on page 24. Okay, it says in May 1873, David Livingstone, the celebrated missionary explorer, died at Ilala in the unknown heart of the continent, and his son's right body was brought home to be buried in Westminster Abbey. From his brass-plated tomb under the nave, Livingstone sounded a call for a worldwide crusade to open up Africa, a new slave trade. You see what they was doing? They were dealing in slaves. Okay? Who was the slaves? Us, obviously. That's what we're reading in Joel. Organized by Swahili and Arab in East Africa. So these are the Swahili tribes now. Okay? These are the Swahili tribes. It says organized by Swahili and Arabs in East Africa. Now watch this. It says was eating out of the heart of the continent. Livingstone's answer was the three C's: commerce, Christianity, and civilization. A triple alliance of mammon, God, and social progress. Trade, not the gun, will liberate Africa. You see this thing? So the Swahili tribes is the people in Kenya and all that. You know, the Maasai tribes and all that. Yes, that is what this is going into. Now, but understand, this is just one family of the line of Ham. Okay, not all of them, but he is just mentioning Swahili worked together with the Arabs in East Africa to deal what? To sell us to China and India. Okay, they were also involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, now read Joel 3 verse 4 again.
Joel chapter 3, verse 4.
Go ahead.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, Swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head.
So now the Lord is telling them, so listen, if you recompense me speedily, because how did they recompense the Lord? By what? By selling our people into slavery. Because that's how they paid us back for God not choosing them as the seed of God. Because they were not chosen as the seed that will be rulers of the earth, they say, this is how we're going to pay the Lord back. We're going to sell his children. We're going to spoil their goods, rape their women, kill their children. You understand? Castrate and hang their men. That's how they say they are going to recompense us. The Arabs and the Swahili tribe, this is the seed line of Ham. Now watch this. Go back to First Chronicles again. First Chronicles 1 verse 12.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12. And Pathrusim and Casluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
So now you notice here it says Pathrusim and Casluhim, of whom came the Philistines and Caphtorim. So Casluhim, guess what? Out of him comes the Philistines. The Philistines whom the Ottoman Turks conquered and took their land, and they call themselves Palestinians. Okay? But it's still going into what? It's still going into Tyrians and on Hamites and the Ishmaelites. They work together to deal in slaves, to sell us as slaves. Now watch this. Read verse 13.
Verse 13. And Canaan begat Zidon his firstborn, and Heth.
Now, you notice in Joel chapter 3, in Joel chapter 3 it's mentioning Tyre and Zidon, because these were the major cities of the Philistines. Tyre and Zidon. You understand? Those were major cities that they were dealing in trade. Okay? So, First Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 12 and 13, it talk about who? The Philistines and who? And Tyre. And Zidon. Okay? The Philistines and Zidon. And the Philistines, guess what? They come out of Casluhim. Now watch this. Give me the book of Ezekiel 39 verse 23. You know what? Before you get me there, go back to Joel. Something I want to deal with. Joel 3, read verse 5 now. Joel 3 verse 5. We're going to read down. Okay?
Joel chapter 3 verse 5.
Read.
Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things.
Because not only were they selling our forefathers and foremothers, but they were robbing us. Because we had possession. We was not bound. We had stuff. We was rich. And they stole everything of ours. Our silver and our gold. Read.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border.
Now I want you to remember this verse in verse 6. It says, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. That's the white man. So the Hamites got together with the Arabs, they sold us to the white man. So now you've got Arabs, you've got Hamites, and Esau involved in selling us, separating us from our children, separating husbands from wives, children from their parents. Okay, go ahead.
Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head.
Now this is a promise. The Lord is saying, listen, I'm going to raise my children out of the place that you have sold them. That's what the Lord is doing right now. The Lord is waking us up in the land where we were sold. Okay, come on. Verse 8.
Verse 8. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians,
The Sabians,
to a people far off.
The Sabians does the Ethiopians. It says the same thing that they did to us when they were selling our sons and our daughters, separating us from our children. He says, guess what? The Lord says, that same thing that you did to my children, I'm going to do it to you. That's what the Lord is saying right here. He says, I'm going to sell your sons and daughters to the children of Judah, and they, the children of Judah, shall what? It says, shall sell them to the Sabians, meaning to the Ethiopians. to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken, meaning the Lord has spoken it, it shall come to pass. Now watch this. In Ezekiel 39 verse 23 now. Because everything the nations was doing, they knew exactly why they was doing it. Okay? Ezekiel 39 verse 23. Come on.
Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 23. And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they have trespassed against me. Therefore hid I my face from them, and gave them into the hand of their enemies.
You see what the Lord is saying? So these nations, they knew exactly who they were selling in slavery. They knew exactly why they were selling us also. And guess what? Like we read in Zechariah, it says they henceforth the affliction because they were at ease. They say, we offend not because they have transgressed against the Lord, against the commandments of their God. So we are well within our rights to do what they terror, to terrorize them. That's what they tell themselves. Now watch this. Remember now, not all black people are the same. We're not all the same. Give me the book of Exodus 11 verse 7. Exodus chapter 11 verse 7.
Exodus chapter 11 verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue.
Read.
Against man or beast, that ye may know that the Lord doth set a difference, doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
Read that again.
Exodus chapter 11 verse 1.
Read.
But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue. Against man or beast, that ye may know that the Lord doth set a...
That ye may know how that the Lord... Read that again. Read it right.
Exodus chapter 11 verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue.
Come on.
Against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
So now the Most High God, he put a difference between the Egyptians and the children of Israel. Okay, now give me that and go back to First Chronicles now. First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11. Watch this. First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11. We're going to read 11 and 12.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11. And Mizraim begat Ludim and Anamim and Lehabim and Naphtuhim.
So now we're dealing with Mizraim.
Remember,
hold on. Mizraim, I said, remember that name earlier on, the beginning of the class. I said, keep that name in mind. Mizraim. Mizraim. Read verse 11 again.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11. And Mizraim begat Ludim and Anamim and Lehabim and Naphtuhim.
Go ahead.
And Pathrusim and Casluim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
So now remember, it says we're dealing with Mizraim, okay? Mizraim, who comes from Ham, okay? Then we've got Casluhim. Out of Casluhim came the Philistines. Go back to Psalms 83. Psalms 83 and verse 7.
Psalms chapter 82 verse 7.
Go ahead.
Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
Tyre and Zidon. So you've got the Philistines, Tyre and Zidon. Okay. Then you've got Mizraim. Then you've got Casluhim, which the Philistines came out of that lineage. Okay, watch this. Now, let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Okay. So remember, we read about the Casluhim, of whom out of Casluhim comes the Philistines. Watch this. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I need you to read the name of the book. I didn't have time to buy it. I didn't have time. What is the name of the book? Tell me if you see the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Come on. Okay. Read the name of the book.
The biblical prophets. The biblical prophets for today.
Well, who's the author? Right there.
By Keith Malcolm Hunt.
By Keith Malcolm Hunt. Now, I want you to read this part right here. You see this part right here? You see where my mouse is? Read this.
Yes, sir. Kasluhim, or the Nasamones,
Okay, the Nasamones,
a powerful tribe of Libyans.
A powerful tribe of Libyans. Remember
Herod,
what we, hold on. Wait. A powerful tribe of the what? Come on, read this again. A powerful tribe of the what?
A powerful tribe of Libyans.
A powerful tribe of Libyans. Let me read the definition in the Zorin Compact Bible Dictionary. I'm gonna read Ham. Okay, on page 213, it says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Okay, read that part again.
Kasluhim are the Nasamones, a powerful tribe of Libyans.
Okay, go ahead.
Herodotus affirms that the Nasamones are Libyans' histories.
Okay, keep going. Targum
Yonatan calls the Kasluhim Pent Politai.
Come on.
Probably Pentapolis. Cyrenaica. In Libya also.
Cyrenica, so that is Cyrene. That's in Cyrene. Cyrenica in Libya also. Go ahead.
They moved to Crete. Zulus in South Africa may have come from Kasluhim.
Read that part again.
Zulus in South Africa may have come from Kasluhim.
It says Zulus in South Africa may have come from Kasluhim. Now, go back to 1 Chronicles chapter 1. 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11 again. Read verse 12. Let's get to the point. 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12.
Go ahead.
And Pathrusim and Kasluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
So now, the Zulus are the Philistines. Okay? The Zulus are the Philistines. Read that again, verse 12.
First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12. And Pathrusim and Kasluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
Now watch this. Let me share my screen once again. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you're gonna read this. Wikipedia, Kasluhim. Read that. Come on.
Kasluhim. The Kasluhim, or Kasluhites, were an ancient Egyptian people mentioned in the Bible and related to literature.
Okay, related literature. Okay, now let's go to, now read biblical accounts. Read that. Come on.
Biblical accounts. According to the book of Genesis, in Genesis 10 verse 14, and the books of Chronicles, in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12,
read.
the Kasluhim were descendants of Mizraim, or Egypt, son of Ham, out of whom originated the Philistines.
Now read that part again because you are breaking up. I need this thing to come out clear. Read that again. According
to the book of Genesis, in Genesis 10 verse 14, and the books of Chronicles, in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 12, the Casluhim were descendants of Mizraim, or Egypt, son of Ham, out of whom originated the Philistines.
You see that thing right there? So he's letting you know, like Mizraim, out of Mizraim came many sons. Okay? Casluhim, of whom came the Philistines. So you've got Mizraim, you understand? And then from there you've got what? You've got Casluhim, and then out of that you've got the Philistines. Okay? So it says, according to the book of Genesis, Genesis 10 verse 14, and the book of Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 1 verse 12, the Casluhim were descendants of Mizraim, or Egypt, son of Ham, out of whom originated the Philistines. Okay, now, watch this. Okay, that's it on that. Let's go. Yes. Let me share my screen once again. Okay. Read what you got. Read it when you see it, Mizraim. Read that.
Mizraim. Mizraim is the Hebrew and Aramic name for the land of Egypt, with the dual suffix ayim, perhaps referring to the two Egypts.
Come on.
Under Egypt and Lower Egypt, Mizraim is the dual form of Mazor.
Hold on. No, didn't say under Egypt, say upper Egypt and lower Egypt. So Mizraim. So Miz is upper, Raim is lower. So upper and lower Egypt forms Mizraim. Okay, read that part again.
Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Mizraim is the dual form of Mazor, meaning a mound or fortress, the name of a people descended from Ham.
Go ahead.
It was the name generally given by the Hebrews to the land of Egypt and its people.
You see that thing, to the land of Egypt and its people, meaning the Hamites over there. Now watch this. Okay, we read that already. Okay, read this according to Genesis 10. Read that.
According to Genesis 10, Mizraim, the son of Ham, was the younger brother of Cush and elder brother of Put and Canaan, whose families together made up the Hamite branch of Noah's descendants.
Go ahead.
Mizraim's sons were Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, out of whom came Philistine, and Caphtorim.
So now what you are seeing here is the lineage of Ham, okay? The sons of Ham. Now watch this. Now let me see. Give me 1 second. I'm going slow on you, okay? Because I know Israel is slow. Okay, so now we're gonna start from here. So I need you to read this. Just let me know when you see it. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. What is the name of the book? Right there.
Shagazulu to hide Pharaoh. That's decoded.
You can say Shagazulu to hide Pharaoh. That's decoded. Who's the name of the author?
By Tamsanga Kingsley Sibisi.
Okay, Sibisi. Tamsanga Kingsley Sibisi. Okay, we're gonna read from this paragraph. Okay, read that. Read the heading.
The palm of the king, the bear-like beast.
Okay, now let's read this now. Come on.
Book called Shaka Zulu to hide Pharaoh. That's decoded.
Read the paragraph now. I want you to read it.
The Ngunis are 5 big tribes from Cape towards Uganda. As you may have seen, the least of the so-called black Jews, which in fact are Hebrews.
So now when you read the whole book, man, when you read from top, the author keeps paralleling the migration of the Ngunis versus the migration of the Israelites. So here what he's saying is that she's not, I don't know if it's a she. She's not saying Ngunis are Jews. So she's paralleling the Ngunis migration versus the Israelites migration. Okay, go ahead.
Some of them are in Australia and Madagascar.
Go ahead.
And America.
Go ahead.
The biblical accounts above tell us that Ngunis are Hamites.
Hold on. Read that part again.
The biblical accounts above tell us that Ngunis are Hamites.
Keep going. Keep reading.
Who disappeared into dark Africa. The Babylonians.
That's the Ethiopians.
Canaanites.
That's the branch of the Hamites. Read.
Ammonites. Ammonites. Cushites.
Read.
And Assyrians, etc.
Come on.
A part of them reside in city Mapungu.
The biblical account above tells us that Ngunis are Hamites who disappeared into dark Africa.
Read.
The Babylonians, Canaanites, Ammonites, Cushites, and Assyrians, etc. A part of them resided in city Mapungubwe around middle 1500. They left to set camps for the coming secretly Roman-led hunting, which was because of the donkeys, the real bloodline of Ham, i.e. the pharaohs. Because of the calling, or James Storth.
So now what you want to see here is that this author right here, he or she, I don't know if that name is a man or a woman. He says the biblical accounts above tell us that Ngunis are Hamites who disappeared into dark Africa. The Babylonians, so he's telling you the lineage of these Ngunis. Babylonians, Canaanites, Ammonites, Cushites, and Assyrians, because of the intermixing and all that. A part of them resided in city Mapungubwe. Around middle 1500, they left to set camps for coming secretly Roman-led hunting, which was because of the donkeys. I don't know what this person is drunk, how they are writing stuff. The royal bloodline of Ham, i.e. the pharaohs. So this person is letting you know that the Ngunis are the bloodline of the pharaohs. Okay, now watch this. Let me see something. Read that. On arrival.
On arrival on Zulu land, they marked the land and gave it names and clans also, God praises and names to form a book supposed, as they were very much aware of the fact that they were to lose their books and identity to the colonists once. The colonists have learned of the Zulus as Egyptians and of their calling.
Come on.
The king as a gate to heaven, the Babylon.
You see, the Babylon, meaning the Babylonians. Remember, watch this. Give me the book of Genesis now, chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10, we're going to start at verse 6.
Genesis chapter 10 verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, and Put and Canaan.
Jump down. Keep going. Keep going.
And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, and Sabta and Ra'amah, and Sabteka, and the sons of Ra'amah, Sheba and Dedan.
Read.
And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth.
It says, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he became to be a mighty one in the earth. Remember what we just read here. It says, colonies, once the colonies, it says the colonies have learned of the Zulus as Egyptians and of their calling, the king as the gate to heaven, meaning the Babylon, meaning the Babylonians. You see that thing? Ezuluini. Keep going.
He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord.
Read.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
Was what?
Was Babel.
A king, it says the king as a gate to heaven, the Babylon. The beginning, it says the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Okay, go ahead.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar.
That's where the Tower of Babel was built. Okay, the Tower of Babel was built over there, modern day Iraq. Now watch this. Let's go to. Now, let me go to the article now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, read the top. Cambridge.
Cambridge University Press.
Okay, you're gonna read this part now. Read that.
Slavery, social incorporation, and surplus extraction. The nature of free and unfree labor in Southeast Africa.
Is a slavery, social incorporation, and surplus extraction. The nature of free and unfree labor in Southeast Africa. So, who's the author?
By Patrick Harris.
By Patrick Harris. Now, let's go into this article right here. Okay, I want you to read this now. Read the heading. Read that.
Slavery, social incorporation, and surplus extraction. The nature of free and unfree labor in Southeast Africa.
So now, what I wanted to show you here is that this guy is going to prove certain things, because he says the authors that came before him, he did this research to what? To expose the things that the authors that came before him, they were publishing things that were politically correct. You understand? They were not doing a thorough research. So this research is gonna what? It's gonna unearth the things that the previous research, the previous researchers didn't want to touch. And when they did touch it, they only exposed certain things, but they didn't tell the whole truth. Okay? So now, let's start here. You're gonna read the whole thing.
Recent research on the origins and quantification of slave exports from Africa has largely bypassed the region south of the Zambezi River.
So it says the exports.
This is partly due to the...
Wait. It says slave exports from Africa has largely bypassed the region south of the Zambezi River. Meaning what? When it comes to slavery and the writing of the slave trades and all of that, they've often bypassed what happened around the Zambezi River. Okay, go ahead.
This is partly due to American concern with the transatlantic slave trade, and partly because of the methodology involved in the quantification of figures based on imports into the Americas rather than on exports from regions and embarkation points within Africa.
So now, what is this? What is he saying? What he's saying is that because much attention has been placed on the transatlantic slave trade, that's what he's really saying. Therefore, ignoring what happened in Southeast Africa. Go ahead.
Consequently, we have a good idea of the numbers of slaves exported to the Americas from Southeast Africa as a region, but a less precise idea of the overall exports from specific areas.
So now he's going to give you the specific areas. Hold on, wait. Okay, let me read. So what Patrick Harris is going to do is going to give us specific areas where the slave trade was happening. So he's going to do that because the previous researchers, they didn't want to do that. Okay, he says nor is quantification the only respect in which slave studies have neglected Southern Africa. So he says slave studies have neglected Southern Africa, which is where one of the major slave trades was taking place. The recent upsurge of interest in slavery as an indigenous African institution has also largely ignored the region south of the Zambezi River. So what he is saying is that slavery was as an indigenous African institution. You understand? They were doing a lot of slave trades. You understand? So, but it's not being touched, this particular topic. Okay, it says, here the legacy of structural functionalism and political sensibilities of anti-colonial anthropologists and historians have stunted the study of pre-colonial slave systems and of their articulation with other forms of social oppression. So guess what? Pre-colonial slave systems was already in existence before the Portuguese came, you understand? Before the Arabs came. It was already in existence. Watch this. It says, hence, it is commonly believed that in Southeast Africa, the Nguni had a natural aversion to both export and domestic forms of slavery. So what he is saying is that he says, hence, and because of this, he says that it is commonly believed, meaning this is a misconception. It is commonly believed that in Southeast Africa, the Nguni had a natural aversion, meaning a dislike to both export and domestic forms of slavery. So what he's going to do in this research is going to prove that the authors before him, they were being politically correct. You see that thing? So it says, the belief can be traced to numerous early popular and ethnographic works which portrayed the heroic ideal of the Zulu nation and which were bound by their concept of an African economy, which, because of its subsistence nature, precluded the use of slaves. So what is he saying? This is some heavy stuff. He's saying basically there's a narrative that is being pushed in the media that is portraying the Zulus in a positive light, in a heroic, you understand, in a heroic point of view. But he's saying that is not the case. Okay, that's what he's saying. He says these ideas were then taken up by conflict minimizing anthropologists who argued that the large-scale incorporation of subject peoples into the expanding Zulu Empire and into the various Nguni groups, fleeing the Mfecani, naturally precluded Northern Nguni from selling slaves or practicing slavery. So what is he saying? The previous researchers, they did their research and the published works was to do what? Was to minimize the conflict among us, so that there's no conflict among us. That's why when they publish these things, they portray Zulus in a heroic, meaning they are the heroes of the story. Watch this. Now he's going to name them. It says, thus for Monica Wilson, the Nguni differed from many peoples further north in this. They neither traded in slaves among themselves nor sold slaves to foreigners. Only among those who raided north of the Limpopo did the regular practice grow up of selling war captives into slavery. So this is what Monica Wilson is saying. So he's quoting what they said. He says, the Ngunis were a nation of warriors who revered their chiefs but rejected slavery. Where evidence exists of the Swazi trading in slaves, this is brushed aside as a tradition. Hilda Cooper went further by stating categorically that the concept of slavery, of regarding a person as a thing to be bought and sold on the open market, and is alien to the Swazi. Now this is Monica, right? Hilda, this is Hilda Cooper. Watch this. It says, for Omar Cooper, the nature of the Nguni social-political system encouraged the retention of captives as subjects and mitigated against the Nguni becoming slave traders. They did sometimes engage in the trade, but not on a large scale. A similar perspective has been taken by Gerard Lisichang, whatever the name is, who views captive taking by Gaza as a form of social and political incorporation rather than as a form of substance appropriation and accumulation. So these authors, they are not really hitting the thing on the head. David Hedges, it says, in a recent thesis dealing with social relations in 18th and early 19th century Zululand and southern Mozambique, fails to mention any form of indigenous slavery. The notion that neither export nor domestic slavery was practiced by Nguni speakers in the area of south of the Limpopo has been reinforced by Portuguese historians. You see who's covering this up? Portuguese historians and colonial officials. Misleading statements aimed at covering up Portugal's participation in and powerlessness before the slave trade have been included uncritically in secondary material to give the impression that the Gaza king actively prohibited the export slave trade. It is presumably for this reason that Duffy and others have overlooked the existence of a fully fledged slave trade from northern Mozambique. So he is going to disprove everything that they've done. So he done some thorough research. If you find it on Josta, you know it's some good stuff. Now this is the map, okay? You see Southeast Africa in the later 19th century, meaning the 1800s. So you've got the Gaza, Mandlakazi, you've got the Tonga, Chopi, Inhambane. So Inhambane is in Limpopo. I'll show you another map now. It says Lorenco Maki. So Lorenco Maki and Inhambane were 2 points, major points where the slave trade was going on. You've got the Delgoa Bay, you've got the Swazis there, you've got the Zulus there. Then you've got the Orichstad, okay, which is Transvaal, the Boers. Now watch this. Now this is an old map, okay. This right here is an old map because Esau likes to keep these old maps, but it's very hard to find them. Now watch this. You see where Inhambane is? Inhambane is in Limpopo. This is an old map. Inhambane is in Limpopo. Okay, so Inhambane, and here you will have Lorenco Maki. So Limpopo and Lorenco Maki, which is now you have Maputo and all that. Guess what? These were the 2 major points of the slave trade. Now, can you brothers see this next map?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Hello?
No, sir.
Okay, let me share again. You let me know if you see the map now. This map right here. Anybody
Yes,
see this map? Oh, good. This is Inhambane. This is Lorenco Maki is down here where there's a star. Then you've got Maputo, which is Delgoa Bay. Okay, then you've got Swaziland. And then you've got down here, you've got Zulu, the Zulu land. Now, watch this. Let's go back to the article now. Now, when we go up, let me go to the conclusion that he made. Then I'm gonna go deal with the meat of the situation. This is the summary now. It says, this essay questions the generally held view that the Northern Nguni were not involved in the slave trade. It is shown that the elements of the Ngwane, Swazi, Ndwandwe, Gaza, and Jere, and possibly Mthetho, the Zulus, confederations, remember what we read in Psalm 33? They are confederate against it, were involved in the sale of slaves captured in the hinterland of Lorenco Maki and Inhambane in Limpopo. And in the 1840s, the terms of the slave trade turned against suppliers as British and anti-slavery activities caused a rise in slavers' overheads, a surfeit of saleable slaves on the coast, and on consequent price drop, because there was a price drop. Okay, watch this, of slaves. I'm going to deal with that later on. The export of slaves through Loronko Maki and Inhambane became unprofitable as the two trading posts were unable to compete with the safer embarkation points, that Loronko Maki and Inhambane, north of the Zambezi. As the export of slaves from the coastal settlement south of Zambezi declined, the trade from its area took on a new form of engage. Labor for the Indian Ocean Islands and non-contracted and unprotected migrant labor for Natal and Kimberley. You can't make this stuff up. Slave suppliers ceased to sell slaves for export through Loronko Maki and Inhambane because far higher prices could be obtained from Transvaal Boers and from domestic purchasers. So you've got three groups here. You've got the Swazi, the Swatis, you've got the Zulus, and the Boers involved in the slave trade. This is some heavy stuff right here. Watch this. Let's go up now. Let's go up. We're going to deal with this thing because nobody wants to talk about this thing. Give me that in John 8:32 real quick. John 8, verse 32. Read what you got. John 8:32. Read that thing.
The book of John, chapter 8, verse 32.
Read.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Now watch this. Let's go up now. Okay, so it says, can you see the article now? Okay, brothers, can anybody see the article?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hey guy, I need you to read the article now. Patrick Harris, page 312. In the first part of this article, read that.
In the first part of this article, it will be shown that slaves were sold by various offshoots of the Ndwandwe, Ngwane, and perhaps the Mteto confederations living to the south of Limpopo.
You see that because they raided those lands.
The export
Hold
of
on.
slaves through...
Wait, they raided south of Limpopo. We're gonna read down. As we read down, you're gonna find out. Because Limpopo, that's where Inhambane was one of the major slave ports over there. Okay, go ahead.
The export of slaves through Lorenco Marquis in Inhambane proved an effective way in which to participate in the expanding world economy.
You see what they was doing? So you had the Zulus and the Swatis involved in the slave trade between these two slave ports, Inhambane and Lorenco Marquis. So now it says the reason why they were doing this is to expound their world economy. Go ahead.
The decline in this export trade in the late 1840s and 1850s and the rise of domestic slavery are then traced to the changes in the form of production brought about by capitalist penetration of southern Mozambique.
You see that thing? So now there was capitalist penetration that goes into the Portuguese coming to shore. Okay, go ahead.
Although slavery in various forms was practiced by several Nguni peoples, the second part of the article concentrates on only one of these, the Gaza Nguni, who under Manukosi or Soshangane, a former Ndwandwe military leader, established a vast empire in southern Mozambique.
Go ahead.
It will be asserted that domestic slavery in Gaza land rose in importance with increased Gaza participation in the market economy, and especially with migrant labor.
Okay, next highlighted part. Watch this.
In the final section of the paper, reference is made to the nature of slavery in 19th century Swaziland and Zululand.
Stop right there. Read that part again.
In the final section of the paper, reference is made to the nature of slavery in 19th century Swaziland and Zululand.
So now it says in the final section of the paper, reference is made to the nature of slavery in the 19th century, that's the 1800s, Swaziland and Zululand. Remember the poster, the camp poster that we have? When in Cape Town, there was slave trade going on in the 1800s, it all lining up with this right here. Go ahead. Come on.
Here an attempt is made to show that the roots of indigenous slavery in Gazaland are to be found in the relations of exploitation inherent in the production strategies of the Northern Nguni.
Now watch this. Now next part. Read that. Export slavery and the Nguni.
Export slavery and the Nguni.
Okay, you're gonna start from here. The export of slaves.
Evidence.
No. Start from here. Start from here. Let me highlight it.
The export of slaves from.
Come on.
The export of slaves from Lourenco, Marquise, and Inhambane well preceded the movement of displaced Nguni groups into the hinterland of these two trading posts during the 1820s and 1830s.
Remember the Zulu and Boer War. When did it happen? 1838, right? Yes, 1838. The 1838 war between the Boers and the war Blood River, the War of Blood River. It was in 1838. So now, because in the media they teach us the reason why the war broke off was because they killed Piet Retief, and that's what initiated the war. The killing of Piet Retief, that was an escalation point, but the war was building up already because the Zulus and the Swatis, they were dealing in Negro slaves, okay? And they were working together with the Boers in the Transvaal to sell slaves to who? To the incoming ships from the Portuguese, okay? So what happened was that it's gonna unfold as we read on, but I just want to paint a picture. The reason why the war broke off, the Blood River War, was because of the slave trade. It was not because of Piet Retief being killed, okay? Read.
Evidence exists that in the 18th century, at least one batch of 74 slaves was exported from as far south as Natal.
Go ahead.
The slave exports from Lourenco Marquise depended on the intermittent nature of European settlement and visiting ships,
Read.
and that Ihambane was known internationally for the large numbers of quality of its slave exports.
Now watch this. I don't know. Your reading is really making me nervous. Okay, let me read that part. It says evidence exists that in the 18th century, that's the 1700s, at least one batch of 74 slaves was exported from as far as south as Natal. The slave exports from Lourenco Marquise depended on the intermittent nature of European settlement and visiting ships. And that Inhambane, that's in Limpopo right there, was known internationally. It wasn't locally known, internationally. It was known internationally for the large numbers and quality of its slave export. Where was they coming from? Who was bringing the slaves to Inhambane? The Swatis and the Zulus were bringing them up, and they're working together with the Boers. You cannot make this stuff up. Okay, watch this. Give me that in First Maccabees chapter 3. First Maccabees chapter 3. I believe it's verse 41 somewhere there. Is it verse 41? Yes, that's the one. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41.
First book of Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 41. And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much.
Read.
With servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves.
Read the next part of that verse. Go ahead.
A power also of Syria.
Of what?
And of the land, a power also of Syria.
A power also of Syria. Go ahead.
And of the land of the Philistines.
You see who was involved in the slave trade? You can make this stuff up. There's a power also of Syria and of the land of the Philistines joined themselves unto them. That's what we're reading in this article. The Philistines are involved in the selling of our forefathers and foremothers. Okay? Now, let's keep reading on the article. I just wanted to bring that up. Now, when you read that scripture, you'll understand why it's saying Philistines there. Okay? Let's go now. Let's move on. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Okay? It says, the devastation caused by the various Nguni migrations and the Zulu expeditions in 1828 and 1833 provided the coastal traders operating south of the Save River with large numbers of slaves. Because remember, they were operating south of Limpopo. Where were they getting the slaves from? Limpopo. Okay, watch this. It says, one observer, like Livingstone, that's David Livingstone, okay, at a later date on the Lower Zambezi, felt that 5 people were killed for every slave exported. And others claimed that that wars were provoked by the Portuguese to ensure a large and cheap supply of slaves. You see that part right there? So the Portuguese wanted cheap, they wanted to buy the slaves from the Swatis and the Zulus cheap and to sell them at a higher price. We're going to be looking at the prices, how much they was cost, how much they cost. Okay? It says, in 1824, slaves were sold at Loronco Maki for as little as 2 shillings. The following year, it was reported that the Nguni devastation of the Delgoa Bay hinterland and the famine which has ensued had caused the price of slaves to drop to virtually nothing. Okay, watch this. At least 2 observers claim that that voluntary enslavement was practiced because of the dangers and uncertainties caused by the Nguni ravages of the area. You see what they are called? Ravages, savages. Watch this. During more peaceful times, the slave trade flourished. African and Portuguese slavers operating at Loronco Maki and Inhambane with substantial profits. So when things were good, meaning what? They were making a killing. Watch this. In the 1820s, captives were sold by their owners at Loronco Maki and Inhambane for about 10 to 12 shillings and by merchants to slave vessels for about 4 pounds. So guess what? The slavers is the African and Portuguese slavers. Who was the African and who was the African? The Hamites, Swatis and Zulus. They were working together with the Portuguese. Okay, working at these 2 slave ports, Loronco Maki and Inhambane. Okay, it says to the slave vessels for about 4 pounds. Now, give me the book of Deuteronomy 28. Okay, verse 68. Jonah, I need you to read that thing for me. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68.
Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Read.
With ships.
Go ahead. That's the slave vessel. The slave vessel. That's the ships. Read.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt see it no more again.
We're not going to see our homeland again. Come on.
And they, ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
He says, there we will be sold to our enemies. From Inhambane and from Loronco Maki. You understand? Read.
For bondmen and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you.
So they were selling our fathers and our mothers. Verse 32 tells you that our sons and our daughters, our children as well. Okay? It says it shall be sold. You see the price that was going for in the 1820s? £4. Okay, let's see how much £4. Hagar, could you just Google for me and see how much £4 is equivalent in 1980s? How much was £4 today? Let's do the math. I want to see how much they was making. Not in rand, in pounds, because they were not selling in rand. They were selling in pounds. So how much would it cost? £4 in the 1820s. Today, how much will it cost? 396 and 56 pounds. That's how much it is today. £4 in 1820 is worth 396 pounds today. 396 pounds. Okay? That's how much it costs. This is how much they was making. So now watch this. Let's keep going on the article. It says, in Rio de Janeiro, it says each of these slaves could fetch as much as 38 to 50 pounds. You see how much it was costing? So now when they were moving to Brazil, this is how much it was costing. The price kept going higher when they moved from Inhambane, because at Inhambane, they wanted to buy the slaves at a lower price. So that when they put them on the slave ships, when they go over to Brazil and so forth, Central America and so forth, guess what? If the price is going to be more. That's what really started the war between the Zulus and the Boers, because they wanted the Boers wanted to buy the slaves cheap from the Zulus and the Swatis to the oncoming ships. Okay? It says during the period of major social upheaval, slaves were sold more cheaply at Loronkomaki than at Kwalimani. That is now in Delgoa Bay, the foremost slave embarkation point on the Mozambican coast. That the Nguni were involved directly in this slave trade is irrefutable, meaning you can't deny it. That the Nguni were involved directly in this slave trade is irrefutable. The problem arises over differentiating between the various Nguni groups whom the Portuguese referred to generally as Vatuas, because this was what they were doing is because, guess what, they all like to classify us all as one. But we read in Exodus 11 verse 7 that the Lord put a difference between us and the Egyptians. Okay? The Jere and Gaza groups under Zwangindaba and Manukosi, the two Rwanda military leaders, are known to have sold slaves at Loronkomaki and Inhambane. The Swazi were involved in a profitable trade in slaves with the Transvaal Boers. You can make this stuff up. Let me read that again. It says, the Swazi were involved in a profitable trade in slaves with the Transvaal Boers, and it seems possible that the Zulus were also involved in the slave trade, as they control most of the Delgoa Bay area during the second quarter of the 19th century, when the locals of Gaza power lay to the north of the Limpopo and Zwangindaba had been pushed across the Zambezi, because the Zulus were controlling the Delgoa Bay area. Guess what? The Swatis were involved directly with the Boers in the Transvaal. You see that thing? Let's keep reading. While men were killed or exported as slaves, raided women, children, and cattle used to expand the Nguni chiefdoms. So the men was killed, the women was taken, you understand, they were raped also. Female captives were highly valued in Gaza society as both childbearers and agricultural producers, and their selling price as slaves was much higher than that paid for men. Merchants involved in buying slaves for the Americas and Indian Ocean islands. So now this also formed part of the transatlantic, like we read in the book of Joel. Okay, merchants involved in buying slaves for the Americas and Indian Ocean islands, on the other hand, were more interested in buying men. So for the Americas and Indian Ocean islands, they were more interested in buying men, as slaves fetched far higher prices than female slaves due to their greater suitability for arduous plantation work. You see that? Give me the book of Song of Solomon real quick. Song of Solomon. Okay. Song of Solomon chapter 1. Song of Solomon chapter 1 and verse 6. Watch this.
Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 6.
Read.
Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me.
Go ahead.
They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept.
You see what King Solomon is saying? He's prophesying. It says, look not upon me because I'm black, because the sun looked upon me. You see that thing? Where was we at? We were working other people's vineyards. It says, my mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own vineyard have I not kept. So we were forced to keep other people's vineyards. You understand? That's the same thing going on today. We are now being forced to keep other people's vineyards, to take care of their plantations. Okay? Just like what's going on right here. Let's keep going. It says, the clandestine nature of the slave trade through Loronkomaki and Inhamban. You see what it means when it says clandestine? Meaning it was hidden. It was not supposed to be public knowledge. So this guy, Harris, he is exposing this thing because the previous researchers, they were not exposing the real truth because of what? They wanted to minimize the conflict among the groups. You ever notice? Because I remember when I was growing up, the black history was always regarding the Zulus and the Swati a lot of the times. And that was constituted as black history. You understand? But you really didn't know much about Limpopo, the Peris, the vendors. You don't really read about that stuff. Now I know why. Okay? It says Herbert Klein, using the two Rio de Janeiro newspapers, has shown that during the period 1825 to 1830, that port alone received 4,031 slaves from Loronkomaki and 3,408 from Inhamban. Vessels on this route carried an average of 572 slaves per ship in the 1820s. In 1831, a ship left Loronkomaki for Rio de Janeiro, that's Brazil, with almost 700 slaves on board. And by the 1850s, slaves carrying almost 1,000 slaves were able to make the transatlantic crossing. You see that thing right there? The transatlantic slave trade. It is likely that many of the slaves exported to Brazil through Loronkomaki and Inhambane were also sent to the north of Rio de Janeiro, like Bahia and Pernambuco. Watch this. The fact that Portuguese officials working in Mozambique had often formally served in Brazil facilitated the slave trade between the two countries. These were sellouts. Okay, as with the Caribbean islands, okay, that's the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, the sugar plantations of Bourbon provided a further constant demand for slaves from southern Mozambique. Over an 18-month period in 1827 to 1828, about 2,800 slaves were exported from Loronkomaki and Inhambane to Bourbon alone. Slaves were also sent up to the coast of Mozambique islands for re-export. What does it mean to re-export? Hold on. Remember who's pushing the slaves up. Remember the Zulus own the Delboa Bay, they own that. You understand? Working together with the Swatis in southern Limpopo with the Boers. So what was going on is that they would take them, they would arrive at those places and they would be taken from Inhambane and Loronkomaki to Brazil, and from there they will be re-exported elsewhere. Not all slavers operating in northern Mozambique worked through the trading post, meaning some were doing underhanded slave trade deals. You understand? Many escaped custom duties and bribes by operating from rivers in Delboa Bay and in Inhambane Bay and along the coast between the two settlements. That's the Swatis and the Zulus was doing that. It says during the 1820s, at least two reports refer to slavery as being the dominant form of commerce at Loronkomaki. By the early 1850s, Inhambane was thought to be the third most important slave port on the east coast of Africa. Heavy stuff. You'll never learn this in the schools. Yeah? Slavery was considered the most profitable business undertaken by the commercial company owning the trade monopoly of the two settlements. At the height of the trade in the late 1820s and the early 1830s, it seems likely that well over 1,000 slaves were exported every year from each port. My God, man. But by the mid-19th century, the effectiveness of the British anti-slavery squadron and of the international action aimed at ending the slave trade had caused an oversupply of slaves and a sharp drop in southern Mozambique selling price. You see right here? Right here. This is the beginning stages of now that the war blood river. You see what I'm saying? In 1836, all slave exports from Mozambique were prohibited. 6 years later, Portugal agreed to a British right of search. And after 1847, British cruisers were allowed to enter Mozambique harbors and rivers. Doing what? Searching for slaves. These measures caused the slavers to move up the coast to hidden embarkation points in river mouths, inlets, and islands where shallows, currents, and disease restricted the search and destroy operations of British cruisers. As if the British wanted to stop the slave trade. You cannot make it up. Those and small schooners made the short run across the Mozambique Channel to those parts of northern Mozambique still free of Portuguese control and returned to Madagascar and Comoro Islands with their slave cargoes. Cargo slave ships. From these entrepots, slaves were exported to Reunion, that's Bourbon, the Caribbean, and Arabia, where they were sold for up to 90 pounds. So the price kept going up. But the Boers and the British, they wanted to buy cheap and sell high. Okay? In Kwalimane, slave prices fell by 5/6 in 20 years to stand at 15 shillings to 25 shillings. In the 1850s, similar price falls were recorded in other areas. Yet in Loronkomaki, slave prices remained relatively stable. This was because Boers in Oryxstad, remember who was working together with the Boers? Swatis. Okay? It says this was because Boers in Oryxstad and elsewhere in the Transvaal were prepared to pay high prices for Loronkomaki slaves in the 1840s and 1850s, which amounted to 10 pounds, 2 cattle or 1 horse. Thus, in Loronkomaki, 2 slaves were sold to a passing ship in 1844 for the relatively high price of 24 to 25 pounds. Excuse me. In 1844, a Brazilian slave trader was able to send 2 vessels from Inhambane with 1,100 slaves and a further 400 from Loronkomaki. So you see, Inhambane had a lot of slaves. From this transaction, he expected a profit of 4,000 pounds. Hold on. 1,100 slaves were taken from Inhambane to Brazil. Now watch this. Could you check how much 4,000 pounds, how much it was in 1844? Anybody check that? Come on, brothers. Work with me here.
We checking, sir?
How much is it?
It was 521,000, sir.
521,000 pounds. They were making a killing. They are still making a killing this day. Okay. It says other slave traders operating through Loronkomaki and Inhambane were still able to buy substantial number of slaves for the Brazilian market until its closure in 1853, and for the Cuban market until 1866. Because in Cuba, that's our people over there in Brazil. So, which means there's a lot of slaves in Brazil, in Cuba, that are from Limpopo. Heavy stuff there. Unauthorized and unprotected forms of contract labor continued to be sent by sea from Lorenco Maki to Natal until the mid-1870s and from Inhambane until the 1880s. Many of the excesses of this form of labor recruitment, they were recruiting. You know, they owned their own, they had their own LinkedIn, okay, during of their time. Differed little from the engaged system and give rise to similar charges of slavery. What becomes evident is that southern Mozambique during the late 1840s and the 1850s was no longer able to compete in the Atlantic and in Indian Ocean slave trade with the low prices asked for slaves in central and northern Mozambique, because the transatlantic slave trade was still going on. Basically, it was more popular. Let me put it like that. Basically, as one traveler was informed, Nguni export slavery through Inhambane and Lorenco Maki became unprofitable because of the anti-slavery activities of the British. And it was because of this that Manukosi prohibited the maritime export of Nguni slaves, while conversely, so he made it seem like, no, I'm not longer dealing with slaves, okay? But he says, while conversely, encouraging the more profitable slave trade with the Transvaal Boers. So now, you see what they are doing? They are switching it up now. The Boers came, they said, no, we're gonna deal with the Boers instead now. Now this is the Zulus. Watch this. Another possible cause for the drop in the export of slaves from Lorenco Maki and Inhambane is to be found in the political stability which returned to the area following the Zulu defeat at the hand of the Boers. Where? At the Black River in 1838. You see this thing? So in the media, you see what they push? The whole Black River. They say, no, it was because Petrie T was put to death. No. The reason why that war broke out was because of what? Because they wanted to buy slaves at a cheaper price. And guess what? That's why the two groups, they started to set up new slave ports underhanded, you understand? Not at normal locations, not at Inhambane and what? And Lorenco Maki. So they set up other slave ports underhandedly, so to be able to still make money and charge higher prices for the slave trade. So guess what? There's no honor among thieves. You see this? This caused the Zulus to retreat from Delgoa Bay. You see that? Because they were owning that area, and allowed the Gaza to consolidate their hold over the area, a move that had the effect of drying up the flow of prisoners of war as a source of slaves. Slaves constituted the most profitable article of Nguni export trade only as long as their high selling price was maintained. You see the problem? So the reason why this war broke out or it escalated, yeah, Petrie T was put to death, but it was because they wanted to still be selling slaves at a higher price, and the Boers didn't want to do that. The British, there's no way that the British stopped the slave trade. No, they were involved in this stuff. Once this dropped, the slaves were replaced by ivory as the major means of Nguni participation in the world market economy. So guess what? The Zulus and the Swatis, their economy was funded primarily by slave trade, selling of slaves. But it says now it was replaced by ivory. Jonah, could you give me Revelation 18, verse 11?
The book of Revelation, chapter 18, verses 11.
Read.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
Go ahead.
The merchandise of gold.
Now what? Stop there. You see, read verse 11 again. There's something I want out of that verse.
The book of Revelations, chapter 18, verse 11.
Go ahead.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
So now we know who the merchants are. In the context of what we're reading, in the context of the class, we know who the merchants are. Like we read in 1 Maccabees 3:41, we understand fully what's going on. Okay? Let's keep reading. Read verse 12 now.
The merchandise of gold
The merchandise of gold, go ahead.
and silver.
Stop right there. Go back to Joel 3. Joel chapter 3. Watch this. The merchandise of gold and silver.
The book of Joel, chapter 3.
Joel 3 verse 5. Read that.
The book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 5. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold.
You see what they did? They took the silver and the gold because we own this stuff. But guess what? They robbed us of our possession. Read.
And have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things.
Read.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians.
You see that thing? Have you sold unto the Grecians? The Grecians, that includes what? The British, the Portuguese, the Boers. Okay, go ahead.
That ye might remove them far from the border.
You see that thing? Because now the border in this case would be what? In Hambane and what? And Lorenco Maki. Let's go back to Revelation 18 verse 12.
The book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 12.
Read.
The merchandise of gold and silver.
Read.
And precious stones.
Come on.
And of pearls and fine linen.
Mm-hmm.
And purple and silk. And scarlet and altine wood. And all manner vessels of ivory.
Of what?
Of ivory.
That's what we just read here. You understand? Go ahead.
And all manner vessels of most precious wood.
Read.
And of brass and iron and marble.
You see that thing right there? Now keep reading.
And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men.
You see that part right there? And slaves and souls of men. When it says slaves or souls of men, it took about their mind. Because when they were selling our forefathers and foremothers, they were also forcing us to speak their languages. You ever notice in the country? Just go to the taxi rank. Go there speaking Peri or Tswana, you'll hear it. They're gonna say Asbuzwa Gututi. That's what you're gonna hear. Not only were they selling us, but they were forcing us to speak their language as well. Okay. Let's read the article. It says, unlike the lower Zambezi, where low prices caused the export of even the colonial direct producers. And remember, by the way, what we read in Revelation 18, verse 11 and 12, you notice that 12 and 13, you notice that it keeps mentioning wheat, flour, oil, and all of that, cinnamon and all. Where do these things grow? The field, the plantation. Who was working the plantation? We just read it in the article. Okay? Either way, whether they were selling the slaves or whether they were selling the things that were harvested from the plantation, they were still dealing in slave trade because they're still using slaves to do the work. Okay? It says, the Nguni 10 what were formerly exported slaves into domestic slaves. So they never stopped the slavery. The exported slaves were now, they were made domestic slaves. For as export slavery declined, a number of factors caused the labor to be more profitably employed within the Gaza state. Now, let me read this. Domestic slavery and the Gazan group. Domestic forms of slavery probably existed in Gaza land before the 1860s, but they were hidden by the export of male slaves and ease with which women and the children were incorporated into kin group. So they took the slaves, they incorporated them into the lineage to become slaves. So they were hiding them as no, they are just servants, they are helpers. No, they were slaves. Okay? However, it seems that slavery as an institution rose rapidly in importance during the 1860s when the Gaza king, Muzila, faced with the military threat posed by his brother, Mawewe, in alliance with the Swazi, incorporated male slaves into his army and used others as producers in order to free Gaza labor for military duty. You see what they were doing? So, I know some of you forgot already. Let's go down. Let's look at the map. Okay? This is the map. When it says Gaza, talk about this. This is in Mozambique. Okay? So you had Swatis, Zulus working together with this guy, and they work together with these guys over here. Transvaal, the Boers. Let's go back. I think I've read that already. Yes, we're here now. Let me read that part again. However, it seemed that that slavery as an institution rose rapidly in importance during the 1860s when the Gaza king Muzila faced with the military threat posed by his brother Mawewe in alliance with the Swazi, incorporated male slaves into his army. So they took our forefathers, they enlisted them into their army, okay, and used others as producers in order to free Gaza labor for military duty. At the same time, a drought, a lung sickness epidemic, and like the corona, and the effects of war wiped out most of the cattle herds, which the Gazanguni had used to procure wives from people who had adopted their culture. You see that part? Remember what we read in Revelation 18? It says slaves and souls of men. Souls of men. Remember what we read in Genesis 1? Genesis 10? It says he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. What was he hunting? He was hunting the souls of men. Okay? Culture whom the Portuguese refer to as virtualizados. I tried to ask this friend of mine, well, acquaintance. He's from Mozambique. He speaks Portuguese. So I wanted to ask him what this word means because I've been trying to Google it. I can't find it. Okay. As wolves and then increasingly sterling started to supplement and supplant cattle as a means of procuring wives, the virtual monopoly that the Gaza exercised over bright wealth was undermined. This decline in their control over non-Guni women, that's our sisters, as the major producers and reproducers of Gaza society. So they were using our women as breeders. Watch this. Let's go to the book of Joel. Joel chapter 3. Let's go back there. Let's get some more historical accounts. Joel 3, verse 3.
The book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
So the men were made breeders, so was the women. It says, It says, and sold a girl for wine. Because the sisters also, they were made breeders, producers. You see what it says? Producers and reproducers of Gaza society. That's what we're reading in Joel. Pushed the Gaza into using slaves, for the capture of female slaves offered an alternative supply of brides for both for the Nguni and for their dependents as slaves. You see that? Labor constituted the major important factor of production in 19th century Gazaland, that's the 1800s. This was partly because of the labor-intensive nature in production in a society with little labor-saving technology, and partly because of nature of kinship system. So what you want to notice is that, remember, the Swatis, they made a league with the Gaza kings. Okay, let's see now. The most efficient way of producing labor from outside the kinship group was to attract wives and dependents who, as producers of food and conceivers of future producers, that's what we read. They sold a girl for a boy for an harlot and a girl for wine. That is what we're reading here. Added to the productive capacity of the homestead in order to increase their numbers and maintain their position of dominance. The Gaza Nguni drew Zulu, Swati, Swazi, and Natal Nguni immigrants and wives from the south by offering them large bride prices, meaning they were selling our sisters, okay, material rewards and political honors. What was the material reward? The silver, the gold, our cattle, our sheep, our goats, okay? Dependent who were drawn either voluntary or forcibly. Is it the Nguni homestead or had Nguni dunas imposed on them? Meaning, well, they were run by chiefs. The dependents adopted the language and many aspects of material culture of the Gaza Nguni, called themselves Nguni, and were considered as such by subject and foreign peoples. The Gaza Nguni used their cattle wealth to draw secondary wives from the Lizados. I'm assuming this goes into, like, slaves, like, your kafir, as they call them, Zanzibar, Zanj, Negroes. You understand? But I'll ask the brother. In this way, we're able to expand their numbers rapidly while maintaining a putative Nguni purity, which served to exclude non-Nguni from the social and economical benefits of political power. This is another question that I always be asking. You see, we're in captivity, right? But you have Zulu kingdom, you have the Swati kingdom. Like, how does that work? If these are Israelites, because we would be what? We would be slaves. We would not be setting kingdoms in slavery. Completely against the scriptures, letting you know they are not Israelites. The majority of them is not Israel. Watch this. It says, outside these putative Nguni and Nguni related centers existed those people who refused to accept Gaza hegemony, meaning what? To mix with them, or had been excluded from the status of virtualizados. The people were easily recognizable because of their non-Nguni language and material cultures, and were subject to extreme exploitation as Amatonga. So what you want to notice is that, yes, they were dragging our foremothers and forefathers into the Gaza Nguni, but our forefathers were rebellious as well in those dealings, and they were easily recognized that these are not one of us; they are not us. Okay, a pejorative term meaning slave or dog, and implying a consequent rightlessness, meaning you have no right. Okay, you are a slave. The undertaking of continuous slave rape reinforced the military aspect of Gaza society and heightened the distinction between Nguni and non-Nguni. The former consisted of putative Nguni and visualizados who served in Gaza army and consequently had rise to the profits accruing from slavery. The Amatonga and Chopi were considered to be subhuman, and as such, a justifiable source of slaves and tribute. In the US, our brothers and sisters over there, they call them, they say, what? You are half a man. Yeah, you are half a man. That's in the Constitution, by the way. That is what we are reading here. Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let me see. Here's the thing. You see, the Amatonga, that was our forefathers and foremothers. The employment of slave labor thus freed Nguni women from agricultural production while ensuring the continuation of domestic production at its former levels. Despite the sharp rise in Gaza migrant labor in the 1880s and 1890s, in effect, this meant that slavery preserved Nguni dominance and all the forms of exploitation that were enforced by that dominance. You see what they were doing? They were using us to maintain their dominance because we were the workers, we were the slaves, we didn't have rights, we were subhumans. But the rise of domestic slavery also allowed Nguni males and their dependents increasingly to withdraw their labor from local production and sell it on the South African market for cash wages. The stock market. You see that thing? The stock market. Let's go down. As an institution, slavery was practiced throughout the Gaza Empire And in the early 1890s, slaves were considered to be very numerous throughout the country. They tended to be concentrated in areas of Guni settlement. Over 10% of the pupils attending a mission school kept at the royal homestead of Mandlekazi were considered by their teachers to be slaves. You see that? They were making sure that our children knew their place. Slave, you must know your place. The Swiss missionary Henry Junot informs us there were hundreds of choppy female slaves in and around the town of Loronkomaki alone. During the Gaza Civil War of 1858 to 1862, the Gaza living in Bilene on the lower Limpopo had been forced by Swati to retreat into Chopi country, where they had been ill-treated and had their cattle stolen. You see this? Remember what we read in Revelation 18? It says, and beasts. Beasts. Where did they get the beasts from? Because they stole them from us. You can't make this stuff up. You just cannot. Watch this. It says, another important source of domestic slaves was the Inhambane area. Let me jump down. This is how they were selling the stuff. As the slaves were used as a medium of exchange and were an important source of sterling at a time when Gaza economy was becoming increasingly monetized. Around 1890, choppy girls were sold for £3 to £5 in Loronkomaki, women for £10 and boys for £1. The Xhosa people who lived on the Nkomati band and became subject to the Gaza in 1892 bought cheap wives from the Gaza. That's a topic for another day. The Xhosa people, another topic for another day. A further profit could be made by selling choppy female captives into the Transvaal. The Transvaal, who was in the Transvaal? The Boers, for up to £40. So imagine, they'd be selling the women for £10 and boys for £1. But guess what? It says captives in the Transvaal for up to £40. Boers also, the Boers also bought slaves directly from Gungunyana. So this was the son of Soshanga. And Indian and European merchants working in Mozambique were prepared to pay substantial bride prices, meaning the sisters, for often temporary bride. What is a temporary bride? That's a prostitute. So where our sisters were used as, meaning what? They were pimping our sisters out. Okay. Wealthy African women in Loronkomaki bought female slaves. These were Hamite women to sell as concubines or employ as prostitutes in the town. North of the Zambezi, the Gazanguni sold slaves to Arab and Muzongo slavers trading with the coast. The Arabs are always involved in the mix. Okay, that's what we read in Joel 3. It was the Tyrians, Zidon, and the Palestinians. They were selling slaves to the Grecians, that they may remove them as far from our borders. In Hambane and Loronkomaki is in this context. Let's see. Because of the great demand for labor both within and outside of Gaza society, slaves constituted an important source of investment for their owners. Through the sale of his slaves, an owner could instantly realize his assets, meaning the slaves, and use acquired merchandise or sterling to produce wives and consumer goods. How did they produce wives? They sold them, they turned boys into breeders. You understand? They forced our forefathers to sleep with their sisters to produce more laborers for the plantation and for slave trade. Okay? It says, despite this quite open slavery, there was a quite open slave. That's an oxymoron. Portuguese officials continually claimed that the Gaza kings had prohibited the slave trade in southern Mozambique. The reason for this denial of the existence of Gaza slavery becomes obvious when it is realized that Portugal claimed suzerainty over the Gaza trade state, but was unable to enforce this claim. This meant that Portugal was unable to prevent slavery in southern Mozambique, but was considered responsible for hostile imperialist powers for any form of slavery founded in the area. Meaning what? They were going to use their capitalist, imperialist, and capitalist power to do what? To shut down the slave trade so they can do it. Okay, I'm just going to read this part. Slavery and its agriculture articulation with other forms of exploitation. In this final section, I shall argue that Gaza slavery constituted a form of surplus extraction and forced social incorporation, which differed only slightly from other forms of incorporation exploitation practiced by the 19th century Nguni-speaking groups such as Zulus and Swati. So in the 1800s, the Zulus and the Swatis were continually involved in the what? In the slave trade. It seems likely that the mode of production taken northward by the Ndwande offshoots, meaning those that came up from the Ndwande family, in the 1820s contained an element of slave labor, as traces of servile or slave labor relations are easily recognizable in two late 19th century, meaning 1800s, states in the northern Gun heartland from which the Ndwande immigrated, those of Mtetwa-based Zulu and then the Ngwane-based Swati. During the 1850s and 1860s, the Swati made several extended raids into the Delgoa Bay, which was before was primarily controlled by the Zulus, Delgoa Bay hinterland, and northern eastern Transvaal. The children captured during these razzias, meaning these raids, found a ready market among the Transvaal Boers. That the Boers, you see that, to whom they were sold for horses and cattle. Where did they get the stuff from? They stole them from us. This slave raiding reached its peak in the 1860s and continued intermittently into the late 1880s, when it was still possible to buy an Amatonga boy in Swaziland for 6 to 10 pounds and a girl for 10 to 12 pounds. Foreign children captured by Swati soldiers, if they were not sold, were taken to the king, who then distributed them to his wives and renowned fighters. These slaves were called Tifunjwa, and if not redeemed by their kinsmen, they could theoretically later serve as soldiers and could have wives procured for them and could start families in the same way as any of the other children in their adoptive homestead. Amongst both the Swatis and Zulus, soldiers were allowed to take male children of men they had killed on the order of the king. These boys were used as mat bearers, and they became soldiers and were able to found homesteads of their own. Because guess what? That's the same thing was doing in Egypt. Young women captured by soldiers during raiding expeditions could quite legitimately be married to their captors, as children could theoretically be redeemed by their kin, or as adults could return to their king without being redeemed. But in practice, it was seldom that a captive child was able to return to his kin because of the difficulty involved in paying a cattle ransom, and once an adult, because of the social relations that bound him to his adoptive family. You see, they started to change stuff. Tikili were Swati girls and Ispila Zulu girls whose fathers had been killed by order of the king, although today the Zulu term is applied to male or female slaves. Today, in its original sense, it meant female household slaves, as these children worked as servants for the king or for the local notable by whom they were seized. They worked in the fields, fetched water and firewood, cooked meals, and acted as chambermaids. Could you give me Judges 5 verse 11? Judges, come on. Judges 5 verse 11.
The book of Judges, chapter 5, verse 11.
Read.
They that are delivered from the noise of archers
Mm-hmm.
in the places of drawing water.
In the what?
In the places of drawing water.
In the places of drawing water. The places of drawing water talk about the places of slavery. the land of our slavery. Give me Joshua 9 verse 20. Joshua chapter 9 verse 20.
The book of Joshua, chapter 9, verses 20.
Read.
This we will do to them. We will even let them live, lest wrath be upon us, because of the oath which we swear unto them.
Read.
And the princes said unto them, let them live, but let them be hewers of wood.
Let them be what?
And let them be hewers of wood.
Let them be hewers of wood. Read.
Let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water.
You see that thing? Let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water. Read on.
Unto all the congregation, as the princes had promised them.
You see that thing? You see what it means to be a drawer of water? You are a slave. Okay, let's go back to the article. They worked in the fields and fetched water and firewood. It says they be hewers of wood and drawers of water. Cooked meals and acted as chambermaids. You know what it means? A bed wench. It was a strict rule that these children could not be ransomed for cattle or in any other way. Captive girls and their offspring living in royal homestead belong exclusively to the king and could be married off by him in return for a royal lobola, and hence acted as a means of concentrating wealth in the hands of the chief and of his lineage. We see what happens in Swaziland. That's the same thing we're reading. Same thing. Nothing has changed. Okay. The Isqila had no rights over their labor, fertility, or sexuality. This is in the Zulu now, among the Zulus, and were not protected by a bride price payment or kingship link. However, they could report any ill treatment to the king and could not be killed without his permission. These were all civil relationships based on forced uprooting. Voluntary forms of slavery existed in both Zululand and Swaziland, where indigents were obliged to enter into a form of vassalage in order to gain access to means of subsistence. In Swaziland, these people were known as Tikonti, and in Zululand, they became Iskuza, servants who herded cattle and protected crops. Okay. Let me see. Wait. Oh, that's it on there. That's the summary. Patrick Harris. All praise to the Most High God. All praise. Now, let's go back to the book. Let's go back to the Bible now. Go back to 1 Chronicles chapter 1. No. Go back to 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 1. Let's read verse 11 again. 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 11.
First book of Chronicles, chapter 1, verse 11.
Go ahead.
And Mizraim beget Ludim, and Anim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naph to him.
Read.
And Pathrusim, and Kasluhim, of whom came the Philistines, and Kaptorim. So now it says, of whom came the Philistines, right? Go ahead. And Kaptorim, and Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn, and Heth.
Now, come on,
and
read.
The Jebusite also, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite,
read.
And the Hivite, and the Arkite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite.
So now, these are all the sons of Ham right here. But verse 11 and 12, it is specific of what we are dealing with. Go back to Psalms 83. Psalms 83 verse 7.
The book of Psalms, chapter 83, verse 7.
Read.
Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
So the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Let's talk about Hamites. Okay. In this case, it says among the Zulus and the Swati. They fall under these are the Philistines. Okay. Now watch this. Give me the book of Judges, chapter 3. Judges 3, verse 1.
The book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 1. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan.
The wars of Canaan. Watch this. Go ahead.
Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof.
So now you notice in verse 1, it's continuing, but it's going to give you the list of those Canaanite nations. Watch this, verse 3.
The book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 3. Namely, 5 lords of the Philistines.
You see that thing right there? The Philistines. Go ahead.
And all the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hivites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Baal Hamon unto the entering in of Hamath.
Read.
And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded by their fathers by the hand of Moses.
Next verse. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites.
The children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites. It was back then, so it is today. Go ahead.
Hittites and Amorites and Perizzites and Hivites and Jebusites.
You see that thing? Because when it says he left these nations among us to prove us, you understand, whether we keep his commandments or not, meaning come out of their customs and their traditions, you understand, to return back to this Bible. That is the same thing. Because you notice when we was in Santon was teaching, when we were rebuking those 2 Edomites, they said to us, you are not Zulus. They said that. Because we said, you put us in slavery. They said, oh, no, they are not Zulus. How did they know? Why did they say that? Because they know the history. The only people that are sleeping is just us. Okay? But the Lord is waking us up this day. Oh, praise to the Lord this day. Okay? Where did I say go?
Psalms 83, sir. You haven't called the verse.
Okay, Psalms 83, verse 7 again.
The book of Psalms, chapter 83, verse 7.
Read.
Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Now, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to definitely end the class right here.
For I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, and when he had supped, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye, as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show the Lord's death till he come. Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning the Lord's body. For this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep.
In the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.